right, live on YouTube and Twitch. Perfecto. So, Friday greetings to all on both platforms. Tonight is Friday Night Fight, so it's going to be classical chess, slow chess, serious chess. But I've got a kid to fish out of the bath. I will be back in a little bit to talk about the tournament that we're doing and do some commentary. Meanwhile, those of you on Twitch, check out Fight and Play. We've got a special tournament tomorrow, as well as this tournament tonight. All right. They were not ready to come out of the water just yet. So here we are. So we've got our tournaments. Here are the links to these two tournaments for tonight. If I go to the 1600 plus, I see there's already a couple people in the under 1600, half an hour early. A couple people in the 1600 plus also already joined in half an hour early, so that is great. Here is the tournament that we are going to be commenting tomorrow morning. Fight with Maddie. And here you can find her story. And here we've got tournament details. It's tomorrow, 12 Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. It's going to be on Lichess, so if you've ever wanted to see Chess Dojo stream on Lichess, we have an exception that that chess.com gladly agreed to for tomorrow to cover this tournament on Lichess tomorrow. So you will see me try to figure out how to use that site. Hopefully it won't just be like a disaster of me clicking around failingly tomorrow. It'll actually be a tournament that I'll be able to watch the games and do some commentary on. Vikram Loth, hi. It says your message is retracted, but greetings to you. And yeah, speaking of rare things, I might be called to the bathroom any moment now, so let's play a bullet game while waiting, just to get the juices flowing for people in the audience who've never seen me play bullet ever, probably. Ho ho! Good start. Good start for the upstart. I just want the king here because I want to use the rook to attack this other side of the board. They want to play bishop a6, huh? I don't know if this is correct, but I just got to do stuff, because it's bullet. Let's defend the f6 pawn here. How am I doing? Is my pawn well defended? Ay, ay, ay. Ah! Sorry, folks. That's what it looks like when I play Bullet. Hey, Richard Brider. Co-op Rubik's Cube puzzle. Chess is kind of like a competitive co-op Rubik's Cube puzzle. I'll be honest with you, Doubter. I don't know how to solve a Rubik's Cube. So I can't even judge your comparison. I don't know how true that is or not. That's the first Bullet game I've played in years. I lost 100 rating points. It had been so long. That looked like one of the easiest to win positions of all time. How did I flub it? Bishop d6, then this became a real rook sack, huh? And what could I do here instead? I guess maybe rook g7. Each side moves blocks to solve. How about like knight takes, king takes, queen h5? What are the odds that black has a defense here? The threat is rook g7, double check. King f8, there's bishop h6. That looks like a good move to me, knight f7. What do you think? What do you think, chat? Have you ever seen someone analyze a Bullet game before? Maybe not. Knight f7 looks pretty good. You could solve a Rubik's Cube in 53 seconds. That seems pretty fast. I once saw a documentary about people solving Rubik's Cubes, but the documentary didn't teach me how to solve the Rubik's Cube. But it did suggest that people are normally solving it with some sort of a memorized algorithm rather than by some kind of spatial recognition where they look 7 steps ahead and figure out how to move one thing from here to there or whatever. In other words, they're kind of, it suggested they're all repeating a solution rather than coming up with a solution. And some of them were doing it in, I don't know, 8 seconds or something. Right, they do a thing at the beginning where they kind of scan it, right? And then they pick what they're going to use on it. But it's pretty incredible how it happens in just seconds. Okay, I think knight f7 would be crushing, so I hung my material here. Got a couple pawns for it. What should I have done here? I think this move bishop c5 looks very good here, so that black can't block the bishop out with d4. After bishop c5, not obvious how black would ever make progress, actually. White's probably still better down a rook. Is that plausible? Could white be better or winning with an entire extra rook for black. Oh yeah, because white's got an extra bishop from earlier, so it's obviously winning. Didn't even remember I was up that bishop. Okay, so I was obviously winning the whole time actually. And then here at the end, I didn't know whether I should pre-move like pawn takes for checkmate or rook takes a3 in case of pawn takes here. I just didn't know. Yeah, okay, obviously winning the whole time. Not very interesting. Have you ever looked at a bullet game and then in hindsight decided the game was not particularly deep or interesting? What's a 15 puzzle, man, with head of dog? What puzzle was he solving? By the way, for anyone who doesn't know what we're here for a classical tournament starting in 20 minutes here on chess.com. There are two sections, over and under 1600. We play classical chess, time control of 90 plus 30 for the higher rated group and 45 plus 30 for the lower rated group. All right, I'm going to step away for a second, folks. Please continue to help folks as they come in to find their way into the tournaments, which will start in 20 minutes. A 4x4 grid where you move the pieces around with one empty space to set up a pattern or whatever. I think I've seen that kind of puzzle before as a kid. Like you're trying to make like a picture of a cat or whatever it could be, right? I don't think those are very hard. Don't recall thinking those puzzles were difficult when I was a kid. All right, be right back. Oh, and sorry, I sent a link for people on YouTube, for people on Twitch. This is the relevant link for tonight, and Exclam Play is for tomorrow morning. Yeah. Everyone applauded his genius, huh? Interesting. I mean, Fischer was a genius. That part's true. Merci, bravo chérie.
I finished. What do I do?
Super. Tu peux aller regarder le vidéo avec Aurélie pendant qu'elle
What
s'amène.
if I'm not ready to watch it?
Alors il peut le regarder sans toi.
What?
Ok, j'en ai hyper marre de toi. C'est fini pour toi, Lily. Même tout est fini, je peux pas avoir ça.
Why?
Parce que tu me gâches la vie. C'est pour ça, idiote. Parce que tu me gâches la vie.
What am I doing wrong? How am I guessing
Tu
Debbie?
m'empêches de faire mon programme.
Go to your program. I'm not stopping you.
Si, tu m'empêches.
How?
On ne pas dire oui quand je te donne des instructions. Mais comment est-ce que tu sais quand tu
But I said yes. And I'm doing it. Dad, I said
brosse
yes.
tes dents et couche-toi, ok?
I do not understand what's happening. What is happening? I did it. I did everything you told me to.
Oh my god. Okay. Welcome back, folks. Or welcome back to me. You've been here. Let's see how we're doing in terms of gathering our players for our tournaments, which start in 10 minutes now. So, whoops. Okay, let's see. Under 1600. The 1600 plus needs one more player. And the under 1600 is set. Beautiful. American Cup replay. Okay. Cool. For the American Cup, I just checked for the classical games. I saw that they were all drawn. And actually, there was one decisive game. Dominguez Nakamura, I think. And I thought, I'll study those drawn games later. Brain juices evaporated. That makes sense, okra. That makes sense. Where does the name okra armband come from? Is it okra like the vegetable? Ooh, it's a fancy anagram. So it came out as real words, but a little bit random as far as their meaning. Let's see if I can figure out your real name. I'm pretty close. You also do enjoy okra. Okay. You're either Mark Brandon or Brandon Mark. Not to reveal your secret. Oh, no, that wouldn't use an M. Yeah, no, it would. Oh, there's no two N's. Brando? Mark Brando. No, that's not using one of the A's. Dang. Mark Barando. Mark Barando. Boranda? Borando? Maybe you've got a double A in your name somewhere, like Jakob. Marco. It could also be Marco. Yeah. All right. Fun. A little worm game. A little word game to wake us up. A little word game as an appetizer. Raise the curve. Welcome to the dojo. Sends us those Bezos bucks. If only Bezos didn't have so many left, huh, folks? Well, be sure to take any action you can to reduce how much money Jeff Bezos has at every step in your lives. If you've got a choice between giving him more money or taking away his money, you know what to do. Shake it like a Polaroid picture. You know what to do. Alrighty, so we've got our games in 7 or 8 minutes. What should we do while we wait? Oh, we could announce our tournament on Twitter. Invite a few friends to come join with us. Let's see, at Chess Dojo, Friday night fights, starting in about 5 minutes. You can drop in to play or watch at any time. And then I'm going to send them a link. Posted. All right. What else should we talk about that is not fascism while we wait for our chess tournament to start in 5 minutes? Anyone have a question or a topic? The Rogozin variation of the Queen's Gambit? Sounds good. Let's try that. So let's say, for argument's sake, all right, you have a specific Rogozin? Go for it, Novest. Hit me with your best Rogozin. For those who don't know, the Rogozin is going to be a Queen's Gambit declined. That's going to look something like this probably, and then we'll see. Okay, the question is about Queen A4, a move that makes sense to me. Excuse me on that. All right, so this double attacks the king and bishop, so it forces the knight to go here, kind of cramping up these pawns and bishop. E3. And now Novest for the jury wants to know why taking on c4 here is worse than taking on c4 for next move. For example, O to O, bishop d2, dc4 is better. Well, I guess because white spent a move on bishop d2 instead of castling. So, for example, if you play dc4 here and white plays bishop c4 and you castle, Bishop d2 would transpose to the line you mentioned, but white has an extra option, castles, which looks better than bishop d2. Well, I think I answered that question with 2 minutes to spare, maybe? Probably 3 or 4 minutes, Alex J. Gustafson. Well, white has more flexibility. This mistake by black of taking on c4 gives white more flexibility. Right? Because you've developed their bishop for them, so they get new options like castling or repositioning the bishop or queen. I don't think I have a single rule of thumb for that, Mark. First of all, Najdorf's with the pawn on e5 or e6 are very, very different. So even if there were a rule of thumb, there'd probably be one rule of thumb for Najdorf's with the pawn on e5 and one for Najdorf's with the pawn on e6. But there's a whole bunch of different considerations that would make me play either knight c6 or knight d7, right? Like I'll play knight c6 if the knight on d4 is putting too much pressure on e6 or f5 and I feel like a desire to trade it off. I will also, in some e5 positions, play knight c6 if I need to keep the option to develop my bishop to e6. And knight bd7 would block in my bishop. If my bishop's already on b7, then I might play knight bd7 to c5 to put more pressure on e4. It has just the very beginning of that Mickelwald. We have the ambition to make that, to add to our assessment tools so that could inform somebody's training. Right now, the only reliable rating we provide is your tactics rating. So that can tell you whether you should work more or less on tactics. We would like to eventually tell you if you should work more or less on endgames or strategy or openings as well as on tactics. So, but it's a very slow process to make really robust and accurate assessments. For one thing, I don't know if anyone's ever done a really good job of it anywhere. All right, our tournament should be starting right now. So get ready, get set. Oh, shoot, somebody just left the tournament, and now the under 1600 tournament might not happen at the last moment. We need a player to join the under 1600 tournament in the next 75 seconds. 1600 plus has a bunch of players who've come in, so they are fine. They are set. No vest. All right, King Charles has joined it so that, whoa, what is going on? So games are about to start, folks, and thank you to King Charles Cav. And my hope, everybody who is playing, is that you can focus on and enjoy your game as you play it. And that includes, muting or stopping the stream while you're playing. And then, of course, you're very, very welcome to come back to us after your game is done to discuss what happened with other people in chat or your opponent or myself. The games are chess.com rated. And what else might one need to know? Pretty much all there is to know. Have fun, everybody, and good luck as well. The under 1600 has been canceled today, unfortunately. But yeah, sorry about that to the couple people who might have been in it. Let's go to the 1600 plus tournament, which has held and has a number of games kicking off. You do not need to be a member of the dojo to play in our tournaments, King Charles Cav. No. Looks like we've got a Smith-Morra Gambit here. I feel like last week Checkmate played the Smith-Morra Gambit as white, and now they've got black in the same opening. Yeah, we did seem to get another player, Richard. I don't know what happened. Probably one of the 4 people, or more than one, who were in that tournament was deemed idle by chess.com and wasn't counted, because I did see 4 people in the tournament. Excellent, King Charles. See you after. All right, and where's the bread versus Clutch EZ on the third board here in the 1600 plus event? Hello, gefilte fish. All right, so what were our other opening options? D4, D5, Knight C3. Interesting. Knight C3, Knight F6. All right, I'm gonna go perform a very quick tuck-in and come back to comment these games. Looks like here we've got a Jobava London, as it's called, on this board. On this board, we've got the Smith-Morra Gambit, and then here we've got the Slav. Let's maybe go with this Slav. White is going to try and track down this bishop to grab the bishop pair here. I will leave this game playing and be right back. All right. So, hi, Jay. It looks like nobody moved while I was gone. Black's bishop appears to be both attacked and have its retreat cut off, so it looks like it's going to be traded for this knight. There is an option to go bishop g4, trying to, struggle around here, right? And maybe force a weakness for white before going here. And then if g4, the position looks complicated, right? Knight takes g4. Looks fine for black, right? Because pawn takes, queen takes, saves the bishop, and black's up a pawn, or 2. So bishop g4, f3, bishop h5. We've got to move from black in the game. Let me just update you on what it was. It was bishop g4. So in the game, black's played bishop g4. We're analyzing f3, bishop h5. Can white track this bishop down now? Unclear. I feel like we need to play g3 to defend this knight here. White's answered this bishop g4 move pretty quickly. Where's the bread played queen b3? Okay, so my analysis is irrelevant to this game. Queen b3 attacking here. And if black defends it with the queen, then she won't have this hidden attack against the knight, right? So if black plays queen b6, c7, or c8, or I guess d7 or e7, if black plays some move that defends b7, white will then be able to go h3 because the queen's not attacked instead of f3. Bishop here and g4 and track the bishop down. There's no tactics against the knight. Bishop here, knight takes, pawn takes, and maybe here. So this is the kind of position that Where is the Bread might have in mind. And Where is the Bread is playing very quickly so far in a way which suggests that they might know a thing or two about this opening. Because sometimes Where's the Bread uses a lot of time, you know, so it's not like they're just always blitzing every week. In fact, sometimes they play very slowly, sometimes they play quickly. It really varies quite a lot depending on the position, I think, their time usage. So I think they have some kind of knowledge here. Okra Armband points out that queen e7 could keep the connection with the knight, but the dark squared bishop would complain. Second issue with the queen here is that taking on h4 might not be good because of queen b7. So even if you move the knight, you might not have a threat. So let's see, for example, something like this. If black plays a move like knight e4 or knight g4, right, white could always take the bishop. And then if queen h4, play queen b7, uh-oh, this requires some real calculation, right? Let's try and simplify this a little bit. Knight takes. Queen takes. Queen takes. And the rook is trapped. And the knight's in bad shape. And white's winning. Hey, Ziz. Doing quite well. I've got the end in sight on my course that I've been trying to complete here. I always fear that I won't finish these things, so it would be amazing if I did. For me, I would feel amazingly good about it. So overall, queen e7 is unlikely to work both for normal reasons and for complicated reasons. Yeah, some of you may already know, so I don't want to bore people with repetition, but I am working on a course about playing basically classical Carl Kahn structure, you know, d4 against c6. Okay, I could play d4 here, even though my course starts with the knight f3 move order. But this is the kind of position that the course talks about, is how to play this structure. So it's basically a lot of positional chess. teaching how to approach the various decisions that you get in this kind of an opening or in this pawn structure. Okay, let's see our live position in the game. Queen b3. And Clutch EZ is using their time very, very carefully here in the opening. They're sensing that Where's the Bread has some preparation, has some idea, knowledge of this opening. And so, when you know that your opponent knows stuff, that's when you got to be careful, right? So Clutch EZ is being a little careful and spending some time in the opening here. And that's definitely what I would recommend. So that's reasonable. Let's click around to our other games while we have the time to do it, right? Wiretapped, if you want to join us, that fight command only works over on whatchamacallit, over on Twitch. So if you are coming via YouTube, you're going to have to find your way to the tournament yourself with your own internet searching skills. Okay, what is going on here in our Smith-Morra Gambit? The position is absolutely loony by move 10. And both players playing reasonably quickly. They're not quite blitzing because they've got a 30-second increment. So they've used, 5 minutes for black and 6.5, 7 minutes for white. But they've gotten into a very controversial situation very quickly. A6, castles, B5. So black spends some tempi on, grabbing this queenside space and fighting this bishop. Develops here, knight d5. White comes sailing in. So that aims to make it harder to develop these pieces. And in general, if black takes, the idea is you move your knight somewhere, we go check, you go here, we play d6. We're going to win back our piece on the e-file, and black may or may not ever get a chance to castle this game. So the knight just kind of plops onto that square. Hard to take or mess with. Black plays knight a5, looking to trade off this bishop at some point. But again, slow to develop these pieces, right? We get bishop g5, bishop e7. Now, one option for white is kind of you trade on e7 with the knight. Knight takes. You're developing your opponent, which you don't like. But after queen d6, I don't think they can kick you out of their dark squares, maybe. Okay, white starts that. Initiates a trade. But then takes time out to defend the e-pawn, which doesn't seem to put that much pressure on black. But okay, my move, queen here, might also not put that much pressure after f6, right? Getting the bishop off of this problem. Here, hitting the knight, takes, castles, bishop here, and just move it. Or play here. White doesn't seem to have a lot for the pawn here. Seems pretty much like a black advantage. So white plays e5. And if black castles, maybe then white will play queen d6. But black does have h6 here as an option, or castles, queen d6, f6. So there's definitely tools at black's disposal here. Personally, I don't quite believe this, right? If we're going to spend a move playing knight d5, moving the knight twice, then another move trading it off, and then the follow-up is just this little pawn move. I just don't believe that black's not going to be able to deal with this just fine. That said, even if this doesn't quite work for white, it does sometimes take quite a lot for black to get the advantage in this opening, because white has just so much natural pressure on these files from the rooks. It's very hard for black to show an advantage, like be up the pawn and sort out all their other problems. I'm going to run and check again on the kids who are refusing to go to bed. Be right back. All right. Wholesome Friday night on the internet. Cool. Yeah, I think honestly, it's almost like a safe gambit, gefilte fish, because like even if everything goes wrong, it's like equal, because black loses this pawn as they eventually untangle their pieces. I mean, yeah, I don't know. I've got a pretty good opinion of the Smith-Morra, other than the fact that, you know, me personally, I don't really know much about these lines with knight f6 for white or for black, and I don't really know who they're good or bad for. So that's kind of my big question about the Smith-Morra. But once we're in the main line accepted position, I mean, I think white's pieces come out quickly, and then there's ideas on the C and D files, and very, very viable opening. And I did at one point make a very simple opening course on the Najdorf Sicilian, including anti-Sicilians. It's for a 1200 to 1800 level, so it's really like rudimentary in terms of opening theory or whatever. It only gives one or two moves. It gives as much as I know, but pretty much. But for that course, I tried to find some kind of a good line for black against the Smith-Morra. I took a couple hours, worked with a supercomputer, and tried to see, is there any way for black to quote unquote punish the Smith-Morra, and no, I didn't find any way to do so. So, you know, even with a supercomputer, I couldn't show that black was better or anything. Okay, gefilte fish gives us a different variation, very close to this one, that goes here.
David, what's going on with Lily?
She wanted to watch a video. I told her to just get ready for bed before watching the video. And then she started arguing with me a bunch about it. And I said that she didn't have time to argue. And I didn't have time to argue because I was already on this stream. And then she just kept arguing. And I said, forget it. Like, just consider the video like out. There's no way it's happening. And then she threw some huge long fit about how I'm so mean and awful and all that.
Okay, got it. Context helpful.
Yeah. I mean, there's nothing to do when a kid is crazy.
Got it. Thanks, David.
You can't stop them from being crazy.
She was just tired.
Yeah. Okay, so gefilte fish's line. Let's see if I can reconstruct it. So castles. So we're gonna go. Knight f3, a6, bishop c4, knight c6, castles, b5, bishop b3, knight a5. So it's without bishop b7, I guess. Okay. So it's going to be knight a5. Rook e1. Knight b3. Queen b3. Now bishop b7. a4, b4, knight d5. This is what filet of gefilte fish is talking about. So if black takes, then of course, since the rook's already on e1, white's poised to immediately regain their piece. If black doesn't take, then against moves like knight f6, sometimes white will have bishop g5, sometimes bishop f4. Right? And gefilte fish says maybe black has bishop d7 and bishop d6 in this specific position. Which, yeah, makes sense. Looks like a possible move. I guess the idea would be that if white plays something like this, maybe black can take and go knight e7 because the bishop's stopping this sort of thing. So bishop d6, and then I guess white would be the one who needs some kind of spiffy thingamajig, right, to show or prove what they're up to. Yeah. I mean, normally A4, B4 would loosen black's position and make these knight D5 moves even more effective. Here, I don't see white's follow-up. I don't know what the idea would be to justify the knight sort of plunked on D5 here. But let's get back into the game and see what's happening. Black avails themselves of this H6 idea I mentioned, taking the pressure off the knight at the cost of some renewed kingside weaknesses. Bishop comes here, grabs the bishop. Now we've got opposite colored bishops for the foreseeable middle game future. Actually, black might go knight f5, you know, and just have knight takes g3 hanging over white's head so that white doesn't have as much prospect in busting open the dark squares. This might be very good for black, actually. Remember, I was a bit suspicious of this e5 move. And yes, there are weaknesses, but now the bishop's trapped. The knight's not really doing anything dynamic. You know, and the pressure, so to speak, on the d file, black has an outpost on d5 that, you know, fully negates any... I don't even know where the queen's supposed to go on c3. Black has rook c8, I guess d3. And, I guess white has to go, you know, slowly knight d4 and move the f pawn and so forth. But, yeah, I don't see compensation either, Stamen. I mean, black's extra pawn isn't amazing yet, but white's minor pieces are not very good. So, definitely some stuff. Oh, yeah, and queen d3 has its own problem. Maybe black grabs in exchange. So, I don't even know where she's going here, which is a bad sign when you are struggling to find a square for a queen on your own side of the board, right? Just a second. I'm going to grab a glass of water since my throat's a little sore and I can't hear myself think right now. Sorry, guys. I caught a cold overnight from the kids, so I'm not feeling tops here. But I guess the queen could hide out over on a3 or something. Knight f5, cutting off this knight d4 move I wanted to play, making moves like h4 less good. I don't see much for white here. No, I don't. Really, really not. Black has played knight b3, queen b3, and here black's thinking. Yeah. Did I put my sweater somewhere near? Yeah. All right. Black's move. Not so hard suggesting ideas for black here. There's also, you don't necessarily need to play bishop d5 here for black. You could just put the knight on f5, straightforward. White's going to do rook d1. Now when we play bishop d5, white might sack in exchange. That's partly why I did this earlier, to kick the queen off so that I could play bishop d5, but I don't necessarily need to. You know, as black, you could maybe play h5 here and just try to win the game on the king side. You could also just develop your rook. You know, look to maybe castle and just coordinate pieces. Queen e7 or queen b6 or something. Or queen c7. That stops rook c1, and then you could play queen c4 or queen c2 at some point. Yeah. Qualification for what, gefilte fish? I think it's going to be a qualification cycle for dojoers to play a dojo championship, right? I didn't know it was going to be called the dojo circuit, but I think that's what it is. Looks beautiful. Checkmate taking their time. Which makes even more sense when you consider that there's several tempting ideas for black. I mean, this idea of knight f5 and h5, h4 is not obvious how white's going to handle it, and it basically tries to just win the game immediately, so. Oh, maybe that's not what it is then, gefilte fish. Maybe I got it wrong. Maybe I need to watch the video or ask Jesse what's in it before I make any more mistakes. Okay, and let's check on our third game. So this is the Jobava London with a very tame e3, which then gets contradicted by the very next move, f3, which is a more aggressive move, trying to play moves like g4 and e4. Black plays a6, which is a little bit slow, but basically it's about wanting to play the move c5 without having problems with knight b5. To my mind, once white plays f3, it would be logical to play bishop d6 for black, maybe challenge this piece and the dark squares that this move weakens a tiny bit. And it's just a good, clean, developing move. So I want to save time and not end up playing a6. So a6 got played, g4, bishop g6, h4, trying to take everything from black, h6. Bishop d3 trades off. Typical position. I've had this kind of position as black a few times. One nice thing about white's position is you get this little boost of energy from queen takes d3, right? When you get that recapture, that gives you a little boost. And then also h4, g4 were played in exchange for the bishop moving extra time and pawn h6. So you kind of grabbed space for free, plus there's a hook. So if you castle queenside successfully and play g5 at some point, could be a nice position for white. And there might even be an idea of g5, knight moves g6, hurting your opponent's light squared pawn structure. So this position looks reasonably pleasant for white to me. And, you know, I originally thought the Jobava London must be terrible and, you know, black should refute it mightily. But having played some games from the black side of it, I have started to recognize or notice some positions that are fine for white. This feels like one of them, and specifically a position where this a6 move is kind of a drag that it feels like black could have avoided. So to me, it looks like there's some prospects for white. Let's count the current development situation. It's black's move, and they need 1, 2, 3, 4 moves for the rooks to see each other. White needs 1, 2 moves, but it's black's turn. So white is 1.5 tempi ahead, which means they've gained 1 tempo of development over the course of the game, which is not a dramatic amount, but they've also, you know, they've built something here. They've built some space while not falling behind in time. So yeah, like my guess is this is a pretty pleasant position for white. I could check maybe a database or something, but we're just going to go with, I don't feel like doing that right now, so we're just going to go with what I suspect. So we're going to just suspect that this particular variation is pretty good for white. I still never played the Jobava London as white because I hate it. Even if I can recognize some of the positions that are decent for white, there's very few positions that are so decent for white that I would want to play them, and I don't know. I'm just a little set in some of my ways, maybe. This is the most logical move for black. 15 minutes on it. This is the move that everything black has done so far has been sort of in order to play this. So I think it's a move black could have played very quickly, honestly, instead of in 15 minutes. I don't know what else we've done anything else for. Like A6 is basically to play C5. White's done everything that would be normal that we would expect of white. And now, you know, we started playing bishop E7. White's just castling and then playing E4 and G5. So, I mean, we have to fight. That's the whole point of anything we've done here as black. And I've had this position here, I think, but one tempo up as black at some point. And with an extra tempo for black, it's obviously better than it is here. You know, fairly acceptable. Oh, do I adopt this setup as black? Yes, I do. Yeah, this is very similar to what I've played. I don't think I've ever faced the Jobava London in a tournament game, by the way. I haven't played many tournaments since this opening gained in popularity. Back when I was playing tournaments, this opening more or less didn't exist. Obviously, I've played a couple times a tiny bit since the opening existed, but not very much. But, you know, online, when somebody trots this out in blitz against me, yeah, I've played C5. It feels like that, Jake, but I think I've counted it, and black's only one tempo behind. But when good players play chess, one move can feel like, oh man, someone's way ahead on time, right? If they use a little bit of the initiative, if they press the opponent a bit. So, DC5 is a weird move from white here. Nobody like ever plays that against me in this position. Normally they play something like knight e2, king f2, or castle's queenside, and leave this tension. So I'm not very used to this approach. Now when black plays knight c6, it feels like black does have a trump in the position, right? It's the idea of e5. It's maybe some threats against e3. White's trying to play g5, but that's almost like the only thing white has. You know, somebody who regularly plays this Jobava and takes on c5, but they regularly get bad positions as white. That's as I would expect. I think this dc5 negates whatever excitement I was feeling for white's position, and black should be fine. Oof, a3. That's not what you want to play. Black's catching up very quickly here, gefilte fish, yeah. Damon, you were thinking maybe knight e4 here. Had you calculated queen a5 at all? Was there a good resource for white there? Myself, I considered knight c3. Okay, black's good. The knight just moved back and forth. And queen c3, bishop b4. So, I think that deals with knight a4.
One of these didn't come back like a half size, the one that I put chips in for Lubin.
No, it did. It did.
Is it? Oh.
I think it's here.
Oh, okay, great. Thank you.
Yep. I just gave it to him for snack.
Got it. Yeah, he didn't eat very much of his lunch.
Almost none, yeah. He said he wasn't hungry, which was weird because,
He was
they were having an active day.
Maybe they were just too busy climbing trees.
Yeah, I don't know. And he was really gassed at the end.
Yeah. He was still awake. I did give him his medicine. He was wheezy.
Hmm.
And acid just back in.
But unlike the older sister, he knew how to get into bed and turn off his light himself. Okay, so as Gefilte Fish said, one move ago Black was catching up, and then one move later Black has caught up. It goes really quickly. All it takes is, one move. 1a3, 1a6. It's not maybe strictly necessary, and there you are. I could imagine thinking a really long time on this move as black. Or as white. Maybe here as white, or here as black. There's a really big question. I think it's the same question for both players. And it's just, where are you going to put your king? What's the safest spot on the board to put your king? Let's start from black's perspective. If you castle kingside, which you obviously could, this very move, white plays g5, attacking your knight and pawn, forcing a pawn trade. If you trade, for example, then you're already going to get checkmated if you move the knight, so you've already lost the knight and the game. If you move away, white takes on h6, opening up your king and winning a pawn, and again, obviously lost for white, for black. So castling loses instantly, but okay, let's say we tried to set it up somehow, right? This is kind of going to be hanging over us, right? So how do we set up a plan to put the king over here with this move in mind? That said, this is where we've got the best pawn structure, right? If you think castling queenside, this pawn's already moved, and this diagonal's been taken over by white. So there's both not a lot of castle to hide in, and even an issue of how you get to that castle. If you stay in the center, well, white has e4 to open the center. They're going to potentially put a rook on d1, whether they castle queenside or not. Let's say they could put a rook here, play e4, put a lot of pressure on d5. Plus, maybe our plan is e5, but that plan doesn't look as good maybe with the king here. So, three options for this king. Go left, go right, stay put. None of them looks correct, right? Now let's talk about white. If white castles this way, well, they've got no pawn cover there. Plus, without the rook on h1, black can just castle. You could castle queenside, but black has the open c-file and, courtesy of a3, the b5, b4 break. Maybe last move, castling queenside looked a lot better for white than it does now. But now after a3, I don't know where the king wants to go. I've also seen sometimes the king get tucked on f2, defending these pawns and letting the rooks play together. But that's normally with the pawn on d4. Having traded on c5 and opened up this diagonal, it now feels like a king on f2 is going to be pretty vulnerable to d4 and e4 moves here, right? With the center sort of fluid. If white had a pawn on d4, then this wouldn't be possible, and the king's often, sufficiently covered on f2. So, excellent chess in my veins. I wish you good fight. So a3 is played. I don't know where either king's going. All three options for both players don't look that great. Black's moved first. Right, both players stand poorly. Yeah, a famous thing to say about a position like this. And specifically, it's both kings that stand poorly, right? And they're each problems for their own position. Hang in there, chess in my veins. You shall get an opponent. I would start by looking at e5, e4, frankly, as black here. But I bet it's going to just be really messy, because right now we have the same number of pieces fighting. It doesn't really make sense that this should be amazing for me when I'm not fighting with more pieces than white. Right? So I may have ideas, but they're just fancy ideas, you know, and white should have resources themselves, or even knight d5 covering e3. So it seems to me just instinctively like a bit early to press the fight, but I might calculate it just to learn a little something about it. And then I have to come up with a way to improve my position. All right, we got a couple of suggestions from black from Jake. The first one I understand. b5. It stops knight a4. And it has the idea that if white ever castles queenside, we're ready to play b4 immediately. That makes super sense, right? The second idea, knight e7, I'm not sure what the idea is. So maybe, Jake, you want to tell us what knight e7 is about. Stamen points out that with e5, we could also get into even more severe fighting with the move bishop takes e3. Queen takes e3, d4. Exactly, Stamen. Black has these options, and they might be worth calculating, but it feels... Instinctively, I wouldn't start calculating it thinking I'm probably going to find a knockout. I'd just be kind of assessing how good or bad is it, but not really expecting too much out of it. I guess knight d4, queen d4 is pretty close to equal. Yeah. So it's possible. It's possible. I just don't know if it's good. All right. Enjoy your game, chess in my veins. Okay, Ninja's got another suggestion for us. All right, so Jake is saying a3, it could be knight d7. I still don't know the point of that move, Jake. But I'm sorry that you're tired. But I understand it, you know. I do know a thing or two about being tired. We've got a suggestion from Ninja of queen e7. Keeping some flexibility, getting closer to the rooks being available, and if white castles, maybe the queen and bishop backing each other up to start attacks over here could make sense. Yeah, so that's a plausible candidate move. And as I would here, Femme Tantra is spending quite a bit of time on this position as black. It's exactly what I would do in their shoes. Ooh. I don't know if I want to spend 3 hours in a chair tonight, folks. I'm feeling a little creaky here. Would rather be in a swimming pool, if I'm perfectly honest. but maybe a swimming pool where there was a chessboard glued to the bottom of the pool and some other chess players in the pool, and we could have Friday night, what do they call it? Diving chess. Somebody just explained to me that's called diving chess. The time control is however long you can hold your breath. So when you dive down and look at the position, you have to make your move before you go back up and breathe. And then you make your move and you go up and breathe, and your opponent will dive down. And then they have that much time that they can hold their breath to make their next move. That would be fun. And I feel like my neck would be happier. Hello, Dabo. Live from New York City, as I now know. I have been disabused of the notion that Dabo had something Canadian about them. For a long time, I thought that Dabo was somebody who lived in Canada but liked the U.S. That was my weird concept I'd invented for myself. You have to excuse me, folks. I semi-meet people through here by the 100 without really knowing. I have this idea also that Alex J. Gustafson and Jake know each other IRL, and I would guess that they're in Colorado, like Denver or something. They go to the Denver Chess Club or something like that. But for all I know, it's actually Texas, and I just invented it. You know? Who knows? And then somebody would be like, David, don't you know the difference between Colorado and Texas? Not too well. Not too well. Kentucky. See? Kentucky. Okra goes to the Denver Chess Club. Queen b6 is another idea, but with a3 on the board, queen b6, knight a4 might be playable now. Let's have a look here. And then queen c3, I guess, is okay. Yeah. Hey, Ed. Yeah, quite a while. Smith love. That does seem true, gefilte fish. When's the cutoff for the Dojo Classical Tournament? The painting's upstairs, Ed, but I have a baby sleeping in the room with the painting right now. So Friday nights, I'm in the dining room. Yeah. I think the Dojo Classical, the Open Classical, the registration closed around March 10th, and now the tournament is in progress. Can you late join it? Maybe. But in general, they start the first week of the odd months, like January, March, May, July, etc. Yeah. Femme Tantra still thinking as far as I can tell. But we've all had our think about this. We all have an idea what we might do here if we were playing this game. As white or black, we've got ideas like b5, queen e7, etc. Yeah, a dojoer has sponsored prizes for a whole slew of our tournaments, Boondock Striker. They've also sponsored prizes for, if I go to the training program, for the round robins. So you could go to Dojo Round Robins. You pick your cohort, right? Like let's say 1500 to 1600 cohort. you'll see that Alex J. Gustafsson is waiting for another tournament to start. They start automatically once 10 players have joined. So these round robins also have prizes now. Yeah, we have a single dojoer. I was going to say generous dojoer, but I don't know for sure how generous they are in the rest of their life. But I want to say, they wanted to be anonymous about it, but they've donated money to add some more competitive edge to the dojo tournaments. Normally we've kept the dojo tournaments prize free so as not to incentivize cheating too much. And I feel like some people take them very seriously, but some people might feel like, the real tournament's going to be my OTB tournament. And so this player just wanted to ratchet that up a little bit for everybody, and they gave us a large amount of money to add prizes to these events. So statement, is this person's name Ismo with an I or Ulsmo with an S? If I had to pick a move before we switch boards, right? If I were to pick a move before we switch boards... This comes from a Jobava London Steph Kitch. And Jay, Black already spent a move on h6, so I don't think they're pumped about playing h5. I see your idea is that once you don't have to trade pawns on g5, you could maybe castle kingside then. But you are giving white a move to play g6. And then still doesn't really feel like you're going to be castling kingside here after g6. I think you're going to play f5 to try and hold the light squares, and white's going to play e4, and then you're going to have a crazy battle. Actually, you have knight e5 winning this f3 pawn. Hang on a moment. We could maybe even play knight e5 right here, let our king get checked. The queen is forced back by our control of squares, and then we score that juicy, juicy pawn. Oh, that knight e5 move I didn't expect, because normally white always has a pawn on d4. That looks at least fine for black. You betcha they are. These games are all rated on chess.com. They're not rated on FIDE or US Chess Federation or Deutsche Schachbund or English Chess Federation or Fédération Française des Échecs, but they're rated on chess.com. Okay, so h5 is possible. That actually weirdly makes me understand better. Jake, 10 minutes or more ago, suggested knight d7, and I never understood what the point was. Maybe it's just a threat to knight e5. Okay, Boondock says they do take them seriously, just like I would, but it will be even cooler with prizes. Cool. So then that works for you. All right, Damon. I'm going to guess it's Ismo. But the reason I was asking is when you type it, I can't tell if it's Ismo or Ilsmo. And then when you type it again, I still can't guess. And Jake was doing this also so that the king side would be closed. If g5 to play h5. Knight d7 looks pretty decent. And if e4, the queen can't stay on the defense. Huh. Oh, well, that's pretty tempting for black in that case. Fem Tantra's been at it for 15 to 20 minutes at this point. Ismo. Nice. All right, I'll look them up. I do like comedy, Stamen. I do indeed. I enjoy laughing. So I will check out your recommendation for sure. Good night, Kentucky. Home of Gregory Kaidanov. Ay, ay, ay. I can't decide after all this time. Kaidanov? Everybody does it. Well, I would guess that many people in Kentucky have a slightly different accent than me. I think I probably have a pretty California accent, even though I don't recognize it as any kind of an accent. I do like words as well, Stamen. What a weird position that knight d7 to e5 is the strongest idea I can see. My instinct is to play some version of e5, e4. So I've been thinking, folks, about this idea. I've been thinking about a3, e5, bishop here, and then just castling right in the face of this, and then boom, kicking the queen away from here, you see? But honestly, even here, takes, here, here. I don't even see necessarily what I'm doing. I guess I'm messing the position up, like hella messy. Oh, but there's also queen h7. I mean, it's just not good. White often plays king f2, Steph Kitch, for sure. But what's unusual about this line, Steph Kitch, is that white chose to take on c5 when black put the pawn on c5 with the bishop still on f8. So white gave black that time to, like, please bring out your bishop, which gives black this e5 square for the pawn or the knights. That's what's a little bit weird about this position, which really tempts me for black to think that I have some kind of advantage. It's like white's waved a red flag in front of me where I think maybe I could do something pretty aggressive. I think I'm overdoing it. Okay. I'm going to say b5. King f2, queen b6, g5. Oof. All right. Maybe b5, king f2, e5, bishop g3, and then queen b6. Now I'm talking. Now I'm cooking. If knight d5, I can take, play rook e8, send your queen over that way, take the e-pawn. Actually, take the e-pawn first, then kick the queen. And after g5, I can play e4. Yeah. I think. Oh, man. Hard choice. Queen b6 immediately is possible, but with a3 and white has knight a4, so I didn't want to do it. Another move you can sometimes play is g6, the point of which is when they play g5 that you're stopping g6 from white, right? And you just trade and put your knight on h5 at some point. There's a lot of options. Man, I don't know what to do. All right, I'll make my final guess here. Be b5, and we'll go look at another game. Sorry we got stuck there for so long. Let's check out this game here, which I thought was going black's direction. Trade, knight f5. I like it. Queen d3. Queen b6. Sure. Stopping knight d4 from white, basically. Also interesting would have been bishop d5, threatening bishop c4. But yeah, queen b6 is fine. Knight goes another direction, wants to go to e4 and then get going somewhere. Queen c6 threatening mate, but white wants to play f3. Oh, that was a mistake for black. 16 minutes and they couldn't find what they wanted to do, and they just forced white to play a move white was going to play anyway. F3, blocking this and letting the bishop out. Preparing knight e4. Yeah, that was no bueno, black. Yeah, you could watch the games, Richard. You would just need to go to the tournament link and then open the games yourself on your computer. Here's the link to the tournament. You can click around on the games yourself with that. Yeah, so now black had to trade before the bishop came. They moved the queen in extra time. I guess black's trying to win this pawn. Wow. Okay. Sure. I like pawns. Why not? Let's eat the pawn. It's going to get a little messy, but I think it's going to go king h2, queen e5. The rooks are going to come out. If the knight goes to e4, black's going to have to just trade it. Black's going to be up a number of pawns here at the cost of the king being a little bit weird. Probably good for black. I guess, man, I was really down on queen c6 on instinct, but now my instinct is that the evaluation must be pretty decent for black here, despite me not loving the queen moving a bunch of times. Okay, let's see our third game from before. And there's a fourth game at least here that started. Where's the bread and clutch easy? This was our actual Slav. Right, so the queen defended b7. White played h3. Doesn't play g4. But instead throws a weird queen check, getting blocked by a knight. That move doesn't make sense. Yeah.
Another quick question for you, David.
Yeah.
Did Lupin have a blue hat on when he came home?
He did, yeah.
Great.
We hung it up with the other hats. If it's disappeared as well, then something really weird's happening with that that hat thing. I know. I'm just telling you, if when we look later it's not there, that's going to be pretty weird.
If you can give me any information as I'm searching the house now about your last memories of his hat, that would be like...
It was that I took it off the thing and offered to him.
When was it?
He said absolutely no, and I put it back on.
When was it though?
Sometime in the last week.
Where were you going? To school?
I feel like it might have been the Sunday when we all went to the pool together. Jay thinks it's a misclick, and the point was to bring the bishop out. Yeah, this just doesn't make any sense. Or maybe even knight b5. Normally, you'd play g4 to trap the bishop. Trap, so to speak, so you can trade it. And then you'd just start bringing out these bishops. But I also don't particularly understand trading on d5 here as being really desirable, because I feel like this exchange Slav pawn structure doesn't favor bishop pairs so much, right? So if we now played something like this kind of a position, sorry, I can't allow knight g4. I'll play here, 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 here. I may be completely wrong about this, okay? Maybe somebody here knows the exchange Slav better than me, but to me, these exchange Slav positions are not positions that really are conducive to showing the superiority of a bishop pair. I feel like the knights work just fine with this really stable pawn structure. They know what squares to aim for, right? Knight a5, c4, knight e4. And I think, to me, it looks like black's fine. So I don't really see the point of CD or queen b5, actually, neither. Okay. White took the bishop pair now. Then develops the pieces. Wow, black just blunders knight b5. That was just an oopsie. They got excited because white, was wasting so much time on the queen. I was almost that excited as well, Clutch, so I can understand it. I was also feeling like, why do you play queen b5? I play a6, b5 for free, knight a5, knight c4, yay for black, right? So, it's unfortunate. Needed to do something else first, like maybe castling, right? Defend the rooks. And then if white castles, then you go b5, queen here, knight a5, and we can see that black has a perfectly good counterplay, and this strengthening of the position due to white moving the queen around is favoring black. White defends the extra pawn. Black couldn't take it last move here because queen takes c6 was check. And then also queen takes rook check will be good. But once black connects the rooks, they could play queen b2, queen c6, queen takes a1. So white could castle to deal with that threat, but then the bishop on d2 is hanging. Let's see. Here, 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 here. Yeah. White seems to achieve nothing. Although just being able to play g5 when the knight can't go to d7 might be something. Knight e8, the knight's stuck. Knight here, I guess, has to be tried to be able to coordinate the pieces. Anyway, rook b1 defends the extra pawn. That's very logical. Getting castled. Coordinates white's position. Now white's up a pawn. Very nice. And look, where's the red playing very quickly this game? It happens sometimes. Let's check our new game. This is Aaron against 316. What do those numbers signify? March 16th? Perhaps the day Mark Antony said friends, Romans, countrymen. But I don't know any famous drug that Americans do on March 16th. I don't know special significance for the date. 316. Doesn't seem like a code, like it's about coming up and staying on top and screaming 316. No, I don't know what the significance of the number is. Let's check out this opening. It looks like a winnower. Winnower, French defense, right? e6, d5, and then bishop b4 to fight for control of e4, probably at the cost of the dark squared bishop. And white plays an offbeat move here, bishop e3. I do not know that move. After knight c6, we get a3, trade cd4, bishop d4. I'm not sure what the bishop's doing here, but after this, we've got a normal-looking winnower. John 316. Oh, that's right. That's right. And Austin 316, right? Mickelwald from wrestling. Austin 316. John 316. That is a famous 316. 316. I didn't parse it without the colon. If you really want to help me out, you have to have your username be 3 colon spelled out. 3 colon 16. So black wins a pawn here on d4, right? Direct pressure from the queen and knight. White lets it go. Black takes it. Bishop b4 to the weak diagonal. The bishop comes out. Yeah, we can feel that bishop. Queen e2. Oh, just setting an evil trap. Knight takes bishop, seemingly crushing us. I was about to plunge into that trap. Bishop b5. Oops. Check. The knight's good, but black's in check. It can't do anything. It can't go to c2. It can't block, really. Okay. a6, stopping bishop b5. Bishop ensconces itself on d6. Black's dark squares are going to be weak forever. White stops this move, knight f4 with g3. Knight d4, we trade, and castle. And it looks like a great position for white now, despite the pawn loss. I don't know how sound it was along the way, but the result right now looks fantastic. Here's the combination that I want to set up. I want black to play some random move, like this. And I go rook b1. They play here. And I take, here, check, here, here, check, here, here. That's how I would like the game to go from white's perspective. This is the combination that entices me. This would provide me satisfaction. J9, you're wondering why not bishop b5 check before castling, right? And the reason is the rook is still hanging with check, so black can take, block. You go queen b7 looking for some tactics, right? But is there some way that check here would actually work out? Interesting. Maybe black can't take the rook, but they can play rook c8, and then we've still got some work to do to justify it. Yeah, black's got, checks on d4 and e4 immediately, and queen c3, but just rook c8, black's up a piece, so it makes sense for them to keep the game going. And then your rook's hanging, so you're lucky that you can castle and keep the game going, and it's interesting, but maybe not more than interesting. So I would definitely castle, just like white did. That makes sense to me. And now it's on 3-1-6 to do something. Here, from the black side, it's hard to castle this king. So you could play f6 to tuck the king on f7. You could play bishop d7, thinking of castling queenside. That's going to get destroyed. That's a very bad idea. Rook b1. Castle's here to defend the pawn. And the famous checkmate with either queen a6 or rook b8. Two famous checkmates. So let's not go queenside for black. Bishop d7, rook b1. You could just play this, just defending things. And eventually you can play d4 since white has no pawn there and open up your bishop for some exciting play for black. This looks pretty acceptable. Oh my gosh, now I wanted to play like queen a6. You can see I've got a bit of a one-track mind. I wanted to do this. But it's nowhere near checkmate, right? The bishop's covering squares. The rook's still on the board. This rook's covering squares. The knight's defending it. So yeah, just my instinct to find suicides in all kinds of positions. So bishop d7 looks reasonably sound for black, and then my attention is also drawn, as I said, to f6, looking to tuck the king and coordinate the rooks, but maybe best to first bring the bishop out, honestly, because that sort of connects the rooks, opens up potential in the position. Black's just moved. Let's see what they did. f6, whoa! Classy move, 3-16. Okay. Now, there's a tricky move for white here, and I didn't think of it before when I was suggesting f6 casually, but White has this move. That looks like a very heavy threat, and Jay Anand has also now mentioned and spotted it. The threat is to take the knight, takes, and then take the rook. I mean, the rook's got nowhere to go to avoid this. You can't defend the knight enough to stop it. So it feels like queen h5 forces f5. I don't know if there's any other move for black that I'm not noticing here, but the threat is just to win this knight / rook. So awesome, Sweet Bell Pepper. Glad you had a good game. It feels like black's got to go f5. And I guess there's still the square for the king. You know, so the game goes on. Oh, maybe there's another move? No, there's not queen g4 till the pawn's here. Yeah. Now there's another move. Queen g4 could come next. Trapping that queen happily. But, I mean, is that position even bad for white? You know, rook b1, queen g4, take. You know, rook b6, rook b4, c4. Seems like a good position for white, right? Black's pieces are terrible in the endgame as well. And, yeah. f3 might even be a really strong move since the king's trying to hide here. Okay, so queen h5 looks pretty strong to me. Black would probably play f5. White could play a variety of moves thereafter. You want me to play c3 to open files? Black's never going to take c3. Yeah, if you play c3, that queen is going to run to b6 or a4 or something. c3 looks fine, though, because actually the queen doesn't have great places to go, Jay. If she goes here, rook b1's with a tempo, right? If she goes to a4, sure, possible, but now rook b1 is also fine. Black can't move too much, or maybe now queen h5, f5, and the same thing, but with the pawn here, it doesn't make a big difference, maybe. I mean, it's a fine move, c3. It's a fine move. You can play it if you want to. I doubt it's much better or worse than queen h5. Like, I don't think c3, queen a4, queen h5 is going to be very, very different than just queen h5 right away. I think it'll be pretty comparable. I'm going to bounce again. People are really taking their time today, and sometimes I just watch one game the whole day, but today we are bouncing. Looks like black lost that a6 pawn. Ay. Yummy, yummy for white, who is now up 2 pawns. So where's the bread? Is kind of cruising on this game and just spending seconds on each move, but never thinking for any number of minutes. It's very comfortable advantage that they have. The position doesn't look super complicated. Let's check over here. What did we see? This game was crazy. So we got e5 after 33 minutes, folks. Deep think. Bishop g3, queen d7, castle. They each go long. g5, takes, boom. So that rook's way over there. Now this knight is a little bit unhappy about the squares that it has available, right? g8, e8 are the ones that don't hang it. Black can maybe also play e4, but it's not clear that benefits them because it reopens this piece. It's just tactically possible. Feels fine for white, and look at that hour 22 on white's clock. They're able to figure out what they want to do while Femme Tantra is sort of agonizing over the choices for black. Yeah, so white's just kind of like playing sort of more evident moves and putting some pressure on the clock on Femme Tantra, and then thinking while Femme is thinking and being ready with the next move. So Yeah, I think black's feeling a little bit uncomfortable here. If I just read the time usage and the feeling here. So e4, I think if white takes, black's not losing a pawn. I think that basically some position like this, you can always play rook e8 at the end and regain your pawn. There's also a somewhat similar option to check and then take this pawn. Though I'm not sure that this really works. I guess, yeah. If queen e6, queen c5, queen e2. Yeah, I mean, I would be inclined to think rook e8 is fine. Kind of reasonable chances for both sides. Yeah, you're asking good questions, Jay. I'm happy to talk about what people in chat ask about. No, Dai, and good to see you. Knight g8's perfectly reasonable here. Idea coming back out by e7. Maybe playing g6 with our structure if we get the chance. If white goes rook h7, then probably g6 to save that pawn. But now knight e7, there will be rook f7, so it might not be easy to get the piece back out. Rook h7, maybe we could sack the pawn. Yeah, thanks, Dai. Things are mainly pretty good. This attacks g7, g3 is defended, but e3 is not. So this would be fine, actually. Rook h7, knight e7 makes sense. And yeah. Seems reasonable. Yeah, the rook's attacked, so we can't do funny business on d5 with e4 as a fork. That's all wrong, because white will just take the rook. Yeah, Stefkich is asking, like, how does one avoid sort of drift into using all their time if you're in a sort of equal position, but your opponent's moves are easier and they're able to play them quickly and your moves are not? Sometimes if your moves are harder, it's because your position's actually slightly worse. But here I think it's because Femtantra was putting pressure on themselves to find an advantage. You see what I mean, Stefkich? They were taking on an extra responsibility to prove that black was better. But white's position was not so bad. So it was kind of like they were putting extra pressure on themselves and they were overplaying their hand by looking for something good. So sometimes, Stefkich, it's as simple as recognizing that you're not actually better and playing simpler moves that look about equal instead of looking for some way to gain an advantage that's not there. Really, normally when you see someone kill themselves on time, it's because they have a misevaluation. And so they're looking for a variation that leads to an evaluation that's not there, and then they're rejecting all the variations they see. Right? So for example, let's say that Fem Tantra's inner instinct is telling them that black has an advantage of between half a pawn and one pawn. That would be a little bit unrealistic here. But let's say they had that just for argument's sake, right? They're going to look at a variation that ends in a position that's about equal and say, well, that position, that line's not good enough. I should have something better. Then they'll look at another variation. Right? Again, that variation won't be as good as they want it to be. And they keep going, right? And that's when you burn a lot of time looking for something that's not there. If you know the position's about equal and you're starting to burn time, all you have to do is like accept an equal looking variation. It's not like black can't find any variation here that's about equal, right? So what I do for that, Stefkich, is I set myself a time limit for playing a positional move. Now, if we're in a position where I have to calculate a 6-move variation, and either I checkmate or I get checkmated or I win a piece or I lose a piece, I will spend any necessary amount of time calculating that variation, getting it right. Okay? But if, on the other hand, it's kind of like this, where it's just like positional decisions, right? Black's deciding, do I want to castle queenside or not? They're deciding, do I want my knight on, G8 or E8, which is going to lead to better maneuvers, right? And they're just trying to decide what's the better circuit for the knight, right? Am I going to C7 or to E7? If that's all the question is, I just give myself a 10-minute time limit on positional moves like that, right? So I would just look for a line that's about equal, and I will have a time limit on myself. Okay, in the actual game, Black played knight E8, and White is now thinking. And Daiwin says bishop takes E3 now seems interesting. Yeah, it is possible for Black to play bishop E3 in many of these positions, and then after queen E3, D4, and recapture the piece. I don't think it's advantageous for Black, but there are positions where it'll be about equal. I assume with this move that Black wants to play G6 and knight C7. And that's probably what they should play. Those are simple enough moves that are reasonable and close to equal. I've heard people say a lot of stuff about long thinks, Jay. Some people saying long think equals wrong think. But that's obviously not always true. It's just a rhyme. I think there are a limited number of positions where you should spend more than 15 minutes, but I think there are some. All right, so it looks like the game that we were following earlier between checkmate and, let's see, where do I have this game? Between checkmate and King Charles Cav has ended. So this was a game where Black had won a couple pawns, right? We last saw the game here, and we predicted that Black would take on E5, White would go rook E1 with the king on H2 to defend the G pawn. Black would move the queen again. Oh, I didn't know it would go there. I thought Black was going to keep the option of knight E4, bishop E4, but White obviously doesn't want to trade queen, so that counts as a tempo. Rook C8, knight E4. Queen E5, wow. Well played by checkmate to understand that they were going to allow the knight here, have control of these squares, and still get the trade-off. That was clearly planned on move 21 when they thought a while about queen D5. They'd figured out that they could handle knight E4 like this. That's brave and accurate. Okay, so sorry. White played queen A3, rethreatening knight D6. Black has to just trade it off. And gives the A6 pawn. I guess the queen had no way to get there, huh? Now White's only down one pawn, but Black uses the tempo to get castled, and rook A8. That's weird. Queen B7, rook A7. She's got no way out, huh? All right, good night, Jay. Or actually, good morning. Have a great Saturday. Rook E5. So takes. And that was GG. Yeah, this rook A8 move just won the game. So I guess here, White needed to try something like A4, but then there's rook A8, queen B5, and the rook on A1 actually kills us. I mean, A4 is the kind of move you want. You want to create a counterplay. You want to make a passed pawn, but checkmate's telling us basically queen A5 had to be played just to escape. Which is unfortunate. Very unfortunate. I guess the other candidate move would be B4, right? Attacking the queen that's defending this pawn. That should be not losing. That should be one alternative move. I haven't looked at it deeply. I'm not promising it's good. But this is going to be one move that will not instantly lose the game. Maybe most interesting move from Black would be queen C3, hitting the rook, so that White doesn't have time for A4 or queen B5. But now, White's threatening rook D7 and queen B5, and the game, I guess, keeps going. D5 looks strong, though. We can't even sack the rooks because of the queen on C3. no perpetual. Queen c3 looks good. d5 looks great, though, because now this rook gets bonked. And then, well, black's got options then, but black's clearly up a pawn with a pretty nice position. So, yeah, maybe queen a5 is a little bit better than that option. But this was a KO. Okay, Stefkic has a question from earlier on, which is, I think in this position, when the queen check came, could white have played rook f2 instead, which I didn't really consider. I assumed king h2, but we're going to see the ideas on queen e5 to let loose with f4 to make as much mess as possible. Okay, I think the answer to this question is hopefully going to be very instructive for you, Stefkic. So I can tell you right away that this is actually not the way to make as much mess as possible. This clarifies black's advantage very nicely for them, Stefkic. Here's why. The pawn on f3 was very important for limiting this bishop, and it supported the possibility of the knight on d2 getting into the game through e4. Once you play f4, this bishop's amazing and this knight is miserable, and that means that the position's just not going to be good for white. Period. I think maybe black's best off trading versus moving away and letting you trade on g5. But it's probably good for black either way. But here, if you take with the rook, I got a tempo. And if you take with the pawn, then I kept the f-file closed, right? And then I come here and I have rook g8 as well. Yeah. So I'm going to be super happy with black's position here. I can go to c5 or d5, right? Offer the queen trade and then rook g8 as well. Checkmate says I could take on b2. Yeah, I suppose so. Yeah. But let's not get bogged down into too many specific variations. Actually, I don't want to lose a very instructive point for Stefkic in the weeds of some variations. So Stefkic, these pieces here, the f4 move helps black's piece, hurts white's piece, actually makes things much easier for black, much more overwhelming of an advantage. White just can't fight anymore without that pawn on f3. What do you say? Does that fit into your chess knowledge with a click? Sushan, if you're asking about the American Cup, I'm not really following it this year very closely. So I don't really know who's doing what or anything like that. I think there have been a lot of draws. I don't know if you're asking me who I root for or who I think's going to win. But I'm just not following it that closely today. Your intuition tells you to try to burn bridges. Absolutely, Stefkic. You want some moves here for white that will mix things up and mess things up because you're down 2 pawns. But you also have to trust in the fact that their king is badly placed and be willing to let the position build a little bit in some cases if you have to. But you want to improve all your pieces as much as possible and have a little bit of patience if needed. But yes, if you get a chance to do something weird or complicated, an exchange sack that's hard to evaluate, whatever it might be, yeah, you would go for something more complicated if you could, but not if it's bad, right? Who I'm rooting for? Neither, Sushan. I don't care at all, actually. All right, let's open one of our other games. How's white doing with the extra pawns here? Black tries to blockade part of the pawn structure. White says no blockade. Bishop b4. Yeah, white would like to play bishop d2, but now they slightly can't. Rook e2. Looking to play bishop d2 next. So knight e4 would be the obvious move for black, but they don't try it. Knight here prevents white's move, and if f3, knight c3, rook c2, I guess, huh? Rook c7. This rook's now really attacked, and then you could take here, here, winning. Yeah, so black could definitely play knight e4 here. It feels like that makes life a little hard for white. Stopping bishop d2 and maybe threatening knight c3. Yeah, looks a little hard for white. But rook a c7, let's see what the idea is, because this move looks desirable for white, and I don't see the problem. Rook c2 fails because the bishop's defending the rook, right? It just drops something. You can trade on d2, then take over the first rank. White can even block. I don't see what black's doing, but there's nothing wrong with trading either. I don't get it. Yeah, I don't get it. Okay, so rook ac7, that's live position. Seems like where's the bread can just go bishop d2. Fix the development a little bit. Keep a great position with just two clean, healthy extra pawns on the queen side. Seems winning for now. Other game we were watching is this one, which has continued to develop. Knight a4, sending that bishop into the corner because it's got to cover knight b6. You know, you can't just go somewhere random with that bishop. So bishop a7, covering the diagonal. Queen c3, looking at knight c5. Black has to redevelop the knight from e8. White goes e4, and it's black's move. Not sure I understand e4. I thought white was maybe playing for knight c5, but I guess after queen e7, it wasn't really much of anything, right? So white played e4 instead here. Still playing pretty quickly. 20 minutes used. Playing some blitz while I asked. Got to a rating high. Nice. And yesterday you might have swindled Kostya. Congrats. Black thinking again. I mean, there's, d4 has its attractive points. de4 has its attractive points because it opens up some possibly hanging spots that the queen g4 could get in on. That's a triple attack, plus the knight's busy defending this guy and has nowhere good to go. That's pretty tempting, right? You would like that kind of cold weather, huh? Do you like America, Dabo? Did I get that part right? At least? I remember thinking that guy's from Canada, but he seems to really like the U.S. And then it turned out you were from the U.S. and it made more sense. Unless I was also wrong and you're like someone from the U.S. who likes Canada. That would be really weird. Not too weird. Don't feel self-conscious. Anyone out there who's an American who likes Canada, that's fine. You're all welcome to like anything. E4. Man, takes in queen g4 looks so concrete. Like, what is white hoping for there? Like, when white played e4, what did they count on? Yeah, where's the bread is kind of cruising today, huh, Richard? Of course, America's great. Yeah. And it's very polite of you to say, like, most countries we have our issues, when in all likelihood it's like every country we have our issues, right? But yeah, but that's very polite because we haven't been to every country. Maybe somewhere there's a country that has no issues, right? I don't expect it based on what I've seen of people in the countries I have visited, but it's possible. Oh, this move is evil. It's cutting off the knight's retreat and wants to play b5. I feel like for sure Fem Tantra would have seen this far, and it probably promising for black, right? So that means playing d4, they're thinking, you go somewhere like this, they win the piece. That's what they're starting to think. And if you go to the wrong square, the queen's also on here, right? So, like, if you went here, maybe knight a5 and busting you, but there's queen here, huh? So it's not simple. Daiwin says knight b5. You mean last move? Maybe black could have played knight b5 instead of pushing or taking, huh? It looks possible. I don't see anything wrong with knight b5. But you'd have to show something really good with knight b5 for me to like it more than pawn takes queen g4. The same is true of this d4 move from Fem Tantra. It better more or less win for me to understand why you didn't take and play queen g4. All right? That queen g4 line just seems to take white's position apart. I mean, I would guess black's winning. I can only guarantee that black's up a pawn, but it feels like basically winning. And I think Sushan said this position looked like a dream Sicilian. This might have been the position that Sushan was referring to, and it has turned from a Jobava London into what looks like a pretty good Sicilian for black, just with the weakness of these pawns here. But okay, d4 was the choice. So let's see what we can calculate. Queen c4, b5, is that simple enough? Queen here, b5, is that simple enough? So it only leaves queen b3. So what does black have planned against queen b3? Also b5? Wait a minute. It's just winning a piece. We should trust Fem Tantra. I sort of hummed and hawed about this move for a while before actually calculating it. But it looks like it wins the knight in one move, basically. Just b5 next. Anywhere the queen goes. So that is GG for Fem Tantra. Spotted it in 4 minutes. Honestly, I might have spent 8 minutes on it if it's winning a piece, and I just spent a lot of time double checking, not believing my good fortune that this knight fell into my lap. But okay. Looks reasonable. Let me take the opportunity, folks. We've been going here for about 2 hours. So I think I want to take like a 10-second break from staring at my screen. I'm going to do a little stretching and all, but I'm also going to make an announcement before I do that. My announcement is this. Who's trash talking who? Chess in my veins. Here's the announcement I want to make, folks. I want to announce that tomorrow at 9 a.m. Pacific, noon Eastern, maybe 5 or 6 p.m. Central European time. Sorry, not to be sure of that. We're hosting this tournament here. Well, we're not hosting this tournament, sorry. We're commenting on a tournament that is hosted, actually organized by Fem Tantra, by coincidence, who we're watching right now. Some move played here. Queen b3. And it is this charity chess tournament, Fight with Maddie. It's to raise money for a family that's fighting cancer. And so it's going to be a 3-minute blitz tournament that we're going to be commenting here in order to, raise awareness and let a few other people find out about the tournament and the GoFundMe campaign. So that's what we're doing tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Oh gosh, chest in my veins. I'm really sorry to hear that. And it's really weird because Boondock Striker's been with us for a long time. A long time here. Okay, and so I'm going to be right back, folks, in like 30 seconds. I am just going to look away from my computer screen for a moment and stretch, maybe do one little set of push-ups, And then we'll be back to, I can't check game chat. No, I can't, chest in my veins. I can check the game position, but I'm not going to necessarily say anything about it. You could, I don't know. I'll ask Boondock about it next chance I get, yeah? I'll ask Boondock Striker about it after the game in chat here. We'll try and sort it out and all be friends, okay? So, I recommend to anyone else who's been sitting at their computer for 3 hours without moving, or 2 hours or whatever, to just change your focal length. Look at like a far wall in your room instead of staring at the screen for a moment. And, just do a little stretch. I'm going to just do a couple push-ups and be right back. I'm still right over here. All right. And just like that, back to staring at screens, Okay. So Fem has played b5. White played knight c3. And Fem is thinking about the capture, huh? Yeah, they could just take it. Jack's Jolly Jungle. I think I recently discovered, just in the last week or two, maybe I put it together, that you can do more push-ups if you breathe than if you hold your breath. So I was trying to inhale as I was doing push-ups. It's hard for me to multitask push-ups and breathing. Part of how I put it together, Dabo, was I realized that almost everything you can do it better if you also breathe. You got another tip? Yeah, you came in at a weird moment, Jack's Jolly Jungle, if you came in during my 30-second break, but I was just saying, like, when you sit at the computer for 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours, it's good to break it up occasionally for a moment. I only stepped away for 30 seconds just to look away from my computer screen for a moment and move some part of my body. Make a shh sound. So, no, shh, not. You can see I'm really bad at this, Dabo, right? I can't even get it right without doing the push-ups, just miming it. All right, I'll try that next time. This dude is not very coordinated their thinking. All right. My favorite world champion before Fischer. Alyechin, probably. For, partly because he wrote, like, a bunch of great books, you know? Mainly because of that. Imagine your hand is slowing down your heart. Well, nobody's required to move, you know, chest in my veins. Did you maybe ask your opponent to move and that's what started the whole standoff or whatever? It's already been 40 minutes. How could it have been 40 minutes? These moves are being played in 3 seconds, 3 seconds, 3 seconds. He's been calling you an 800? Alyechin refused to rematch Capablanca. Does he lose points for that? Yeah, for sure, Enrico. I guess he's still my favorite because the books gave him a lot of points. $40 minutes? How could it have been 40 minutes? Didn't you start with an hour and a half? Oh, you played all your other moves in like 5 seconds at first, huh? 2 seconds, 2 seconds, 2 seconds, 2 seconds. So you guys had like an hour and 40 minutes each by this point. Well, chest in my veins, you should have just played a bullet game instead of starting a 90 plus 30. If you wanted to play all your moves in 2 seconds and then have your opponent not think about their moves. I mean, I'm sorry about what's happening. If he's telling you he's doing it on purpose, you know, you can take a screenshot and send it to chess.com customer support, and it's going to go badly for Boondock. But Boondock is like a friend of ours. Let's give Boondock a chance. Can you de-escalate the situation? Can you say something nice to Boondock? Like, I see you're really upset here, and I'm sorry. You've got nice hair, and I feel like we got off on the wrong foot in this game. Maybe we could still be friends? He doesn't have much hair, so I'll be lying. I don't believe in lying. Fair enough. Doubloondock, because he's a treasure. Oh. Nice. Well, look, now you guys can talk in front of all of us here in public, in the chat room, and make up right here. So we're going to take Boondock Striker at their word, chest in my veins, that they just want to spend some time on this move. Some of the other moves they played really quickly, and this one they wanted to think about. Well, Enrico, I would like to be lots of things if possible, but I think to be a therapist, you have to get a lot of intense training, right? It takes a long time to get there. I may not have enough time to get there, but I do like talking to people. I think I could maybe go to therapy. That doesn't require a lot of training, right? And that might be interesting and fun for me. I mean, oddly, Chess in my veins, you both seem to have time to talk. So that is a little bit odd, but you do see that in the conversation you sent us, it seems like you started the conversation, right? Normally it's fairly standard in chess sort of not to talk during a game, right? Like both players would just play their moves and nobody would say anything. Yeah, why don't you assume the best, right? Why don't you assume the best that he actually wants to think about this move and, find out later if you were right or wrong. But for now, just assume the best. And I am really sorry for both of you that that you're both not enjoying this game at this point, right? Because I think that much is pretty clear, and it's really unfortunate because you both came into this game hoping to enjoy playing chess together, right? Because to play chess, you kind of need an opponent for it to be good. And so you came into it hoping to have a good time together, and now neither of you are really enjoying it, right? Like, you're not enjoying what you feel is stalling, and they're not enjoying being told to hurry up. And so it's unfortunately become a situation where this lovely thing, chess, is not happening in the right way for either of you at the moment. I'm really sorry about that, and I feel your pain on that matter. I think right now the best thing you can do, though, is like haranguing your opponent in some way is only making it more and more unpleasant for both of you. So the best thing you can do is to assume the best of your opponent and try to, calm yourself and either find a new way to enjoy the rest of the game or maybe grab a book and read a book while waiting it out, something like that. Yeah, I think unfortunately, as Dabo and Raise the Curve are saying, a lot of people are going to have a negative reaction to being told to move, where they're going to spend more time out of spite because just that innocent little comment from your side is actually going to upset a lot of other people. So, I imagine when you said, anyways, could you please move, it wasn't because you wanted to upset your opponent, but there's a chance that you accidentally or unwittingly upset your opponent, because that is something that, if said to a lot of opponents, would upset them. As evidenced by Dabo and Raise the Curve. So I think you just have to accept that unfortunately you may have upset your opponent, and let's not make things any worse than they are. Yeah, grab a book, grab a snack, and, yeah, accept it as you can. Yeah. Or as Dabo says, like, you could apologize in a way, even if you don't feel like you did anything wrong. You could say something like, okay, I feel like, like I was saying, right? Like, I feel like there's a very good chance, chess in my veins, that trash talking was uncalled for sure, right? It's not about being right or wrong. It's about making the best of the situation you're in right now and understanding the situation you're in the best you can, understanding yourself and your opponent. Like, the goal isn't to prove that you're right and that they're bad. The goal is just to get out of a situation that neither of you is enjoying and try and get back to a situation you are enjoying. So say something like Dabo is saying here, right? Like, I perhaps wrongly felt like you were stalling. And yeah, if you weren't, then, what I said doesn't apply. I apologize for it. I didn't mean to insult you with that. So yeah. And what I think, chess in my veins, is like, even if you don't find the perfect words, if you're able to express a sentiment of like you're de-escalating and you're trying to understand the opponent and be respectful towards them, even if you get things slightly wrong, it'll probably go a really long way. Yeah. Right, I'm happy to play this game with you. Let's enjoy it the most we can from here. I wish you all the best. Let's just enjoy this the most we can. And, yeah. And on we go. Yeah, hopefully. And Boondock Striker's saying that you maybe told them to resign repeatedly in a not nice way. So, yeah, maybe you can imagine. Maybe each of you can imagine the other side of where you are, right? Like chess in my veins. Maybe you could imagine being on the Boondock Striker side of this conversation, and Boondock, maybe you can imagine being on the chess in my veins side of the conversation, and that could be helpful for both of you going forward, regardless of who's in the right, Richard, regardless of who's in the right. All right. Let's talk about this where is the bread game, because I think where's the bread and clutch easy are not in chat with us. So let's discuss it. For a while, white was up 2 pawns and looked like they were cruising. Now the bishop on a1 appears to be trapped, and the pawns appear to be blockaded. And white is up 2 pawns, and black's not threatening to win any of them back, but it's not clear how white does anything, does it? Like, if white has a winning plan, I imagine many of us don't see it. So let's retrace the last few moves and see what we make of it. So this position here, we expected maybe bishop d2, trading something. Instead, we got bishop b2. So that bishop heads in not a very good direction and doesn't break up the blockade, right? So this move, maybe there was something wrong with bishop d2 that Where's the Bread saw that we didn't see because we weren't as zoned in on this game, right? But we can definitely see that this is not going in a very good direction for white, actually. So, black plays knight e4. A move later than we suggested it, but, the knight just comes in closer and controls these squares. And bishop a6, trying to break up the rooks, but black has a fancy move. Nice move from clutch EZ. That may have been a little surprise move there, that rook c2. When I was looking at this position, I was wondering if white might not want to play f3. But I think even here, if black goes for opposite-colored bishops, they've got a blockade and they've got the open file. Like, you're not sure to win an opposite-colored bishop ending up 2 pawns. Like this one, who knows? So it's not clear exactly what white should do. This happens, a trade here, and another trade. And this might have been a good example of the suggestion, which I think Monster Marcus was wanting to do for white. To maybe go like d5, they take, and just bang, put your bishop on a good square, and then try and use these pawns with the rook behind them. Although I will say, like, I don't know for sure if this idea wins either, right, Marcus? Because I mean, they do still have a blockade for now, and the rook's active. And let's say they start, I don't know, bringing the king. You come here, and then they go bishop a5. Still not clear how we break the blockade. Maybe bishop c5, and if rook here, b4. But another idea would be black attacks this pawn. You push, takes, push. This really shows white's idea in the brightest light. This pawn is just a goner. Yeah. And maybe we could employ a similar idea against bishop a5 where we sack and just go. Go. Rook b1, getting ready for stuff. a7. Rook a8. I could win this pawn on d5, but maybe it's better to not let black's king get in the game, right? We can always go rook d7, rook d5 later if we want. This looks winning for white. So maybe d5 does work, right? It just wasn't obvious. But maybe this was a great move already here. Yeah? I mean, maybe black's got some more useful move than f6, but yeah, rook here and pushing. If the bishop moves, pushing this one. It's nice that you've got two, Marcus, right? Because we need to sack a second pawn. One pawn to get our bishop to a good square, and then a second pawn to get one of them rolling. By the time we're playing something like bishop a5, b4, white's not even up a pawn here anymore, right? Material's equal. But now all our pieces are super coordinated, and this guy is so strong that we're basically winning this equal material position. So, where's the red? Tuck the bishop for safety. Clutch EZ goes to c2 to keep this rook from activating. Rook c1, rook c4 at some point kind of idea. Rook d1. King g2, g5. King here. Black always has bishop d6 check, pushing you back, and then coming back to b4. So white can't use the king to make these pawn breaks. If black just plays check, which they did, king came back, black can repeat. And so if black goes bishop b4 and we get back to like this position here, the idea I have here for white is d5 takes, rook takes, bishop here, winning this pawn with some counterplay, right? And then white's going to try to, make use of these pawns. Sounds like, unfortunately, you're still upset. Chess in my veins. I'm very sorry for that. I like to think that everybody has a good experience playing here in our dojo tournaments, and I'm sorry that we didn't manage to fulfill on that dream for you today. I take some responsibility for it. I'm sorry. Sorry about that. Yeah. All right, retreated. King came back to g1. Ooh, I might need to use that rhyme at some point, Marcus. Who cares about material when your endgame is ethereal? Wait, you're also David? All right, Dabo says about the Italian. I wasn't following the Italian conversation. I assumed it was a side line, and I was just looking at the game, Dabo. But Dabo says about the Italian. Play c3, knight d2, not knight c3. If bishop c5, play o, rook e1, knight f3, knight g3. If a6, play bishop b3. If bishop e7, play knight f1 immediately before castles. I don't know any of that, Dabo. That does not sound simple to me at all. That's not simple to me as somebody who doesn't understand the plans and the moves associated, yeah? I don't know why you got tagged in that comment, Marcus, but I'm just not in the censoring business, so I let it through for all the world to see. You might be right about everything you said about the Italian, David, but this David over here doesn't know all that stuff you know. And so to me, it doesn't seem simple, and I imagine to Richard, it also didn't seem simple. Yeah. Enrico Moss says with the king on g2, black could even just go bishop d3, trying to take on e3. Sorry, I didn't see that for a moment, Enrico. The thing about, and David Justice, sorry. The thing about like bishop d2 as well is you're not really preventing d5, because d5 is not necessarily based on the rook recapturing. The point of d5 is to get the bishop out and then use these pawns by putting the rook on b1 or a1. And amazingly, even if black, captured one of these pawns, the position could still be good for white. Although this rook can't get to here, right? So this would be the idea, and then, black's playing like f6 to protect that pawn, maybe rook here, king here, and the pawn just starts going. That's white's plan. Oh, that's an idea David Justice has as well. Maybe f6 for black, so that if white goes d5, you play e5 and keep the bishop on a1. Yeah, and even if this pawn goes all the way to d7, white's basically down a bishop. 3 passed pawns, but I don't think we can win with the bishop on a1. So we need something... something here, huh, for white? That's a pretty interesting idea from David Justice. This is a very good idea, Richard, that Dabo's giving, by the way, on the side conversation about the Italian. If you've got a player you like who plays the Italian, just play through their games and sort of copy how they play it. Chess in my veins, in my experience, there are lots of people who are a little bit unsportsmanlike and disrespectful here and there, and often it's because they have slightly different standards of sportsmanship and respect. And then the important thing is not to prove that somebody else was unsportsmanlike or disrespectful. The important thing is to help each other get better in some way, right? Important thing is to try and improve ourselves a little bit, help each other get better. I've had lots of people here come into our chat And I think what they do is maybe what gets called trolling. Like they come in, I don't know them, I've never met them before, they don't know me. They come into chat for the first time and they start saying really nasty things to me. You know, why are you playing chess? You're such a nerd. I could beat you, blah, blah, blah. And normally within a few minutes, we're friends. So, you know. I don't like this A1 bishop. Yeah. This position's definitely about the A1 bishop. All right, let's see how their game's going because they've played a couple moves. Now the bishop's in a new trap. This is the actual game, yeah. Look, it was in this box and now it's in this box. This bishop's having a weird time today. Really weird time. That's good. It'll expand Where's the Bread and Clutch Easy's chess minds. You know, when you get unusual positions, different ideas you haven't seen before, it expands your mind. It's really cool. Checkmate says it might have been better off just stopping on d4 instead of heading out to g7 to eat that pawn. My instinct would be, though, that white's pretty much winning after rook d5 now. I don't think the bishop's going to get trapped, and now we're up lots of pawns, right? And white took. That's 3 pawns already. And if black goes after f2, we've got this amazing answer, rook f5. And, you know, white's just cruising. Rook c7. Okay, so that's to play king f7 and not allow rook d7. Rook b4, you could take this pawn with check and get this bishop trapped. But there's a lot of options for white here. There's got to be a good option. So let's see, we went here, here, and started pushing this pawn. King here, a6, king here, rook here, takes, takes. Black wins, right? So we have to be careful. So we could even still lose as white with 3 extra pawns here. It's not advisable to lose as white. If white goes rook f5, black has bishop c3 ready now, and that move doesn't look like it helps white very much. If you just want to save the bishop, the move would be h4. It's g takes h4 is not a ton of counterplay for black because the king's there to catch the pawn. Takes. Lets the bishop back out, and you still have 2 extra pawns, so that's pretty fine. And I guess h4, they could try this move. But then you get so many pawns. So many pawns. 5 extra pawns already. Connected, healthy pass pawns everywhere. So I think like h4 is surely winning. And then, of course, there's other options, I guess. Yeah, I think this is also a good example, folks, of how people have different standards of sportsmanship and respect and stuff, right? Like Marcus, and like how we can go wrong applying our standards to other people and guessing who's bothering us on the internet or who isn't. Like, nothing against what you're saying, Monster Marcus, but my pet peeve is when I beat someone a few times and they win once and don't rematch. Right? Okay, reasonable. And I think the way you phrase it is correct. It's your pet peeve. It's not necessarily an evil thing for an opponent to do, right? You don't know when they might have to go or when they might be tired, or, maybe their goal was like, today I just need to win one game and then I will log off. Maybe they're on tilt and they just need to win one game to get away, and they're afraid that if they lose the next game, they'll be stuck playing chess for another 2 hours, right? Like, we don't know why somebody chooses to stop rematching or leave, and it's their right to some extent. But yes, it could peeve you, right? But we wouldn't want to get angry at somebody over it, right? Because we don't really know. Awesome. What I'll say is super impressive, Chess in My Veins, is for you to be able to say, I could have handled it better. That's sick. That's really sick. Good job. Good job. That's a very impressive thing. So I think we can definitely put it in the past. And not only put it in the past, but I mean, you just did a great job of moving forward from it. That was pretty strong. Yeah. That's pretty awesome. And it doesn't mean that your opponent didn't do anything wrong or anything like that, right? You're just saying you see there were like 50 different moves you could have made. You chose this move. Some people in chat suggested another couple moves, and now you're like, oh yeah, I could have maybe tried this move or something. Super, Yeah, I've had people also, Checkmate, just get so angry at me online if I play a single game with them. So it's not like I don't lose 6 games, win 1, and then say ha 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 and leave. I play a single game because I've got time for a single game, or because I told myself if I work for an hour, I get to play 1 game, and then I have to go back to studying or something. I win 1 game, they say rematch, I say, sorry, I have to go, or I have work to do or something like that, but, thanks for playing, and maybe another time we could play together. And then they just start cussing at me, That happens. And if I've done something wrong, I'm definitely not clear on what it is, or that it was something that upsetting. So, but for someone else, that could be their pet peeve, like I may have stumbled into their pet peeve unwittingly. All right, let's see where we're at. After rook c7, Where's the Bread has made a decision. They went rook b5, going after the bishop, looking to get the pawns rolling. Bishop goes to d6. I think c3 was a really solid choice for the bishop here, just because overprotecting f6, I feel like helps lock that bishop in, right? If white goes rook b6 now, I feel there's just some sort of like juice around this rank, I guess bishop e5 will take care of it, no problem. But to me, bishop c3 was my kind of instinctive move. We get bishop d6, and white is thinking here. Oh, interesting, Shirograph. I didn't even think about that. Would I take a draw from either side here? Probably not, Mitt Romney's dog. The position looks pretty interesting. I'd probably want to play it. Maybe from black side if I thought I was losing. My instinct is that white is better. Oh, look, this is maybe why the bishop came here instead of c3, folks. You have to remember they're more concentrated on this game than we are. But rook here to try and get the bishop out, right? And then there's rook c1, winning the rook. Whereas, if we'd played bishop c3, after rook here, does black have any resource to stop bishop f8 and then bishop back into the game? Nothing, right? That is true, Steph Kitch, for sure. If you're asking me, Mitt Romney's dog, no. Jesse's a GM with a higher rating than me and one less kid. No, I've never been better than Jesse. I mean, sometimes on the board for like one move, I had an advantage or something, but isn't he old? I think that Jesse might be about 9 years older than me. So I don't think it swings things in my favor yet at this point. The gap's always been there. I think you're right, David. I think I am maybe better at swimming than Jesse. Jesse can definitely do more push-ups than me. Jesse's a weightlifter. Hello again, Jay. Is Jesse better than Kostya? I guess by a small margin, probably. Yeah. But Kostya's like another 9 or 10 years, another 10 years younger without any kids. So he definitely has the hope of overtaking Jesse. It's definitely, I don't know if he has any kind of rivalry or anything like that. But if Kostya wanted to set a goal of being better than Jesse one day, he would certainly have his chances. There is enough of an age gap between them. Okay, so bishop d6 was played. That prevents rook b8. I think that's the reason. So that's a good move from Clutch EZ. He was rather low on time here. And white goes for the A pawn, leaving the bishop sort of unattended for the moment. Jay thinks white's winning. Chess in My Veins wants to know if Kostya's going for GM. I would say very mildly. Chess in My Veins. Like, Kostya is trying to continually get a little bit better at chess, but I don't think he's like, I gotta become a GM. And he's not going all out either, right? He doesn't just do his own training 40 hours a week and go to like all the best tournaments he could go to. He devotes probably more energy to training other people and teaching other people through the dojo than to his own chess. So I would say that Kostya is more interested in getting other people to become masters than in getting himself to become a grandmaster. Okay, Marcus says that last move there was maybe a better opportunity to play h4 with the idea of king f7, h takes g, gets the bishop out. Couldn't black just take the bishop before it gets out? I mean, white's got pawns for sure, but I don't follow the calculation, Marcus. Oh, okay. Let's catch up that. a5, king f7, bishop h8. All right, so the bishop tucks itself. The king can't keep chasing because it'll take on f6. Whoops, sorry, that's just me misclicking. And if the rook goes here, then I guess white uses rook b7, right, to fight for the bishop. I don't think the bishop's going to die. I'm very happy, by the way, folks, with how Boondock Striker and Chess in My Veins have moved through this. You may think that this was a bit of a disaster, and it was a little bit, that they were playing a game and both not having fun at some point. But I think compared to how the average internet argument between chess players goes, this has come out really, really quite impressively by both of them. With maybe some help from all of us, yeah? I would agree with that, Shirogorov, yeah. It might be a little controversial, I don't know, but I feel like positional chess, to some extent, you can apply, reason and wisdom and stuff to it and experience.
And tactical chess just requires so much calculation, and that's like a muscle that tends to slack off eventually. And almost every chess player I know over age 30, even if they can still calculate well because they make a ton of effort to work on their calculation, they still do it slower. You know? So like, even somebody like Magnus Carlsen, super, super strong, still, tactically very dangerous and very, very good, but I think slower than he was 10 years ago. And I would say, yeah, and everyone I know over 30, even if they're good, they're slower. Naka is slower now. Everybody gets slower, I think. You have a friend who doesn't resign. He's just making himself suffer, right? Checkmate. I've felt that sometimes. I think it might have been Shirogorov, yeah. I've never thought it through like that, but F5, was that really played? No, that's just my misclick from earlier. Okay, that move would make no sense, letting the piece out. Okay, so what's Black going to try here? They're down to under 3 minutes, not finding anything super here, right? You want to go after the bishop, but this rook check. And let me just say, folks, if the rook comes here, check bishop here, you can't take because the bishop's undefended, so white can just keep going like this, and they don't have to save the bishop anymore. I understand, Dabo, that it would be self-fulfilling if everybody said it while being wrong. But I also think it's true, and there are people with all kinds of different attitudes, right? So there would be some counterfactual, some counter examples if it weren't true, of people who are calculating faster / better in their 30s than in their 20s, or in their 40s than in their 30s or 20s. But I just know of no examples. Are you fast, Dabo? Are you faster at calculating now than before? By the way, when I thought you were Canadian, I also had this like profile of you that you were like 20, but now I realize that that I had invented that as well, and I don't know how old you are. You look 20. That's nice. Yeah, Black's down to a minute here, but if they can't catch this bishop and the A-pawn just keeps going, the game's lost. So it makes sense that Clutch EZ is on a final last stand here of trying to figure out what to do. Could you maybe go bishop E5 to anchor the pawn with the idea of then king G6 to H7? Maybe. Black starts with king G6. $365 years old. That's true, checkmate. The worse you are, the more you can improve as an older player, right? Okay, so what's the idea here? Does black want to try rook h7? Feels like that's the idea. We've got a suggestion of rook d5, which looks pretty good. I imagine b4 is pretty good too, because I'm sure we could give up the piece and win with these pawns if we advance them well. Well, I'm not sure of it, but I suspect it. If I go here, it brings the bishop here where it wants to be. That's not so easy. Maybe white needs to play h4. I see where's the bread thinking. That's a great find by Clutch EZ with just seconds left on the clock. To invest 5 minutes, 45 seconds, go down to 30 seconds, and find a move that actually still makes it tricky for white. Yeah, I was thinking something similar, raise the curve via rook d5 because someone else suggested it to me. Stamen suggested this move, so I was thinking here, 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 just to get the piece out. And what, white has 4 pawns and a bishop against a rook. You would assume it's completely winning. So now we're down to 3, but the rook's on a really short leash, right? That seems probably winning. We got to move from where's the bread. Rook d5. Stamen's instinct. Yeah, die win. I think rook b6, bishop e5. I didn't really see the way forward here. Yeah, 300 points OTB in your 70s is insane. And especially, it's not like they didn't go from 100 to 400. They were an established club player and went to expert. That's one of the most incredible late life improvements I've ever heard of. Okay, so Clutch EZ avoids the exchange sack, keeps the bishop here, still doesn't let the rook to the back rank, and still looking to just trap this guy. Man. That move was played with 19 seconds. Clutch EZ is putting up some incredible resistance right now. And I feel like h4, king h7, bishop f6 is the best thing I see now. It's not super easy. Chess in my vein says maybe also rook f5 could be played. That makes sense, but maybe then there's rook c8. Boom. And it's not easy at all. Yeah. So I'm not sure how good rook f5 is actually. Rook f5, rook c8. Dabo is giving very solid advice here. Instead of worrying about what you can or can't improve or what your limit might be, do some work, figure out your weaknesses, work on those weaknesses, you know, if you want to. Okay, we got to move. Rook d4. So I think the plan is to sack the bishop here and take another pawn over there, right? He's just trying to take every pawn he can. Maybe hold the structure like this. 20 seconds for Clutch EZ, getting down real low here. How low can you go? I think it's got to be king h7 at this point. I mean, you can't defend this pawn anyway, so at least win the bishop, right? King h7. I agree, dog. White should have spent more time. Black's putting up a hell of a fight, and White's not properly respecting it with the speed with which white's playing, you know? They're definitely risking a mistake playing this quickly against black when black is putting up such an epic resistance. Now, if I were black, first instinct, and black doesn't have a lot of time to do more than instincts, is to get the rook behind these pawns somehow. Good night, David. Sleep well. Be well. I guess it's been a while since I made my announcement, so I'll remake my announcement, folks. We've got a tournament tomorrow morning, different than our normal Saturday tournaments. It's going to be... Oh, no, that's tonight's tournament. Sorry. It's going to be this one here from Exclam Play. Blitz tournament. Fundraiser for a family battling cancer. It starts half an hour earlier than our normal Saturday tournaments, but not too far off. You guys can make it on time. It's going to be an arena on Lee Chess, so make sure you have a Lee Chess account. If you want to play, you see that link there. It'll give you all the information about it that's here, right, for this Fight with Maddie tournament. So come on down and play that tomorrow. I will provide commentary. The entry fee monster meet is sort of up to you. Like, basically, it's a suggested donation, it says, to the GoFundMe for Maddie and her family. And I didn't see anything other than suggested donation. It didn't say what the suggested donation was, so I think it just means like whatever you want to give, whether it's $1 or $5 or $20 or whatever, right? So it's the entry fee is for you to decide. You set your own entry fee, I think. So just, come play if you like to. And okay, for those in YouTube, I'm going to send you the link directly in YouTube if I can. Let's see. I don't know if that link works. Jay, do you get the link that I tried to send on YouTube? So here's what's happening. Rook e4 played. Check. The rook gets behind the pawns. Rook a1. b4. Bishop c3. Freezing those pawns. It's freezing for the pawns. Yes, I'll be commentating the games. Chess in my veins. At the very start of the tournament, my partner is going to be at her workout class. And so I will be flooded with up to 3 kids. So I think for the first 10 minutes of the tournament, my commentary will be... I don't swear on stream. My commentary for the first 10 minutes of the stream will probably be poor. And then hopefully, when my partner gets home and gets some kids off my back, it will improve dramatically. And perhaps even be worth watching. Mitt Romney's dog suggests a move which I also wondered about after rook a1. I was wondering about rook a4 for white, right? Sort of simplifying and trying for a trade that would leave black with less to do. If black moves away, we have to assume the pawn's gone, right? So we're expecting the black takes, and then puts the bishop on this diagonal to stop the a pawn. So now we don't have connected pawns, but there's only one piece left, and it seems like it should be winning, right? Understood, Jay. Lots of people in this world, billions of people, unfortunately, are broke. And for those people, you can't help with money, and that is just the way of the world. Very understandable. So, you know what you could do, Jay? Maybe you could let someone else know about the tournament or the fundraiser. Or just play and have fun, and be polite to your opponents in the tournament and make it a more fun tournament. Just on your own, Thanks for the offer, Enrico. I have to set up the stream myself for sure, just so that it's like streaming on our channel. So there goes that A pawn moving forward. So if black takes the pawn on b4, the a pawn will queen, I think. Bishop took. So white can go a7. Black has to go rook a1 and give up the bishop to stop the pawn. Yeah. Where's the bread did it? It looked tense. Some of us watching thought that it could have been wise to invest a little bit more time for white because it was so tricky, but Where's the Bread did pull it off. I'm just stretching my neck. Did pull it off. Epic endgame. Honestly, epic. Yeah. Super. Super interesting endgame. And it shows you that, you know, being two, let's go to like the endgame started as this kind of a position, you know, being two connected pass pawns up is not necessarily easy. You need some real skill to bring home even two pawns. You know, when I was 2200, I wouldn't have been able to win this endgame yet. I didn't have the endgame skills yet. It was probably not till, let's see. Probably not till I'd been a master for like 6 or 7 years that I would have been good enough to win this endgame. Like in a classical game against tough defense like we saw today. So it's very tough, and it just teaches us, you know, what the level of difficulty in chess is. You know, technique is really tricky. It's not just a simple thing. I was seriously disappointed many times not to convert such positions checkmate, yes, but I many times did. I'll give you a sense of my level. As a 2250 master, maybe even 2300, I'd been a master for maybe 2 years by that point. I was playing a very strong IM, Igor Ivanov, and I got to an endgame of rook and 7 against rook and 4. So I had 3 connected pass pawns on the queen side, and the king side was 4 on 4 with no pawn weaknesses. 3 ABC, all 7 of my pawns were healthy, and I lost that endgame. So I was disappointed, yes. But I also wasn't like super surprised when I blew endgames, because I knew what my endgame level was like to some extent. You know, I had a little bit of a sense, you know. So everybody's got different strengths and weaknesses, right? I was also strong enough to get that position against a very strong IM, right? And I was, you know, pretty young national master, right? So obviously the game also meant that I had certain skills, right? And certain weaknesses, just like most people, right? All right, let me close this rapid game and go back to the game we were just at. Clutch Easy asking, did you make any mistakes in the opening? Yes, but I think you probably know the mistake you made is when you played b5 and your opponent could take the pawn, right? This was your mistake, b5. Up till this point, no mistakes, just a normal game. Right? So here the position looks fine. You thought they sacked it on purpose. You're fine up to here, Clutch. You can watch the VOD because we looked at your game for a long time. And maybe you pick something up. But if I recall back here, I thought you could just castle and play b5 next move. And I thought that you were about equal. I can computer check it if you want for you. Let's see what the computer says. Computer says equal. So I'm probably right in that case if the computer agrees with me. Castle, play b5, the position's equal. So nothing you really need to worry about your opening play, right? You develop the pieces pretty purposefully to to main normal squares. And you fought for something. You just got too excited and blundered with b5, right? Hanging the pawn. But it was the right plan, right? You were just going to play b5 a move or two later, maybe, once white doesn't have knight takes b5. My understanding, Novest, for the Dreary is that basically this exchange Slav pawn structure, and as I said during the live commentary, which you guys can review, I'm not an expert on this structure, but I don't think that this pawn structure here is one in which one can really show the advantage of the two bishops. I think it's a solid maneuvering pawn structure where the knights keep up with the bishops just fine. So I think in general, like, it's a pretty equal pawn structure. And if you want to show the bishop pair advantage from one of these knight h4, h3 lines, then I think you shouldn't trade and get that locked structure. I think you should just go straight for g4 here, takes, here, or whatever, and just hold that tension. And here you keep like options for breaking with e4 without a bad pawn structure because your d-pawn won't be isolated, and various other plans. So, right, in theory, okay, if you wanted to really like make use of CD, it would be, yeah, to then play here, maybe without bishop d2, right? Maybe you don't need it. Here, get castled, here, and you want to break with e4. The thing is, how do you break with e4 with the d-pawn hanging, right? Like e4, knight d4. So how do we make this a reality, right? Your opponent's position is like basically normal and correct. Also, by the way, I've just hung knight takes g4. So it's not even that easy to have your king properly placed. Oh, and Clutch easy spotted it. Good job, Clutch. So it's not so easy to coordinate everything, but I have a hard time seeing how you're going to play e4 without a knight controlling d4. And even if you did play e4 with d4 defended and your king castled, after e4, you're going to have an isolated pawn and a weak square on f4, right? So it'll generally just be a position. I don't think even then that you would have much. Like, I don't even know how to arrange it for you, but like if your opponent were not allowed to take on d4, because that's the other thing about CD is like it puts the knight on c6, makes it harder to play e4. If you don't play CD and play this position here, your opponent can't play knight c6. They have to play knight d7. And in some cases, you could play e4 without even protecting the d-pawn because nobody's attacking it. Nice. That's very nice of you, Jay. Right on. Yeah. So those are my admittedly not very masterly knowledge of this line of the Slav. I don't play this much with white or with black. I prepared it once for a tournament and then didn't end up playing, like didn't end up getting the variation, not because I backed out, but because it just didn't come up. So I prepared this line once and have never played it. So really not, really not an authority, but you know, it's the best. It's the best I can give you. So I'm giving it in the hopes that it might not be completely wrong. You know? Yeah, and you both know you can check the VOD, right, Clutch? You can watch what we said live while watching the game. It was pretty good. Pretty good game. We stayed on it for a while at that point. All right. Wow, Aaron and 316 are still playing this game that looked amazing for white earlier. And we catch them at a still pretty interesting and violent moment here. The rooks are trying to finish the game, but the knight is doing some work. It's not over yet. 47 minutes for Aaron, 1 for 316, putting up epic resistance against a 700 points higher rated opponent. Let's maybe recap a little bit what happened this game. Some of you may remember seeing this earlier on. We had this position here. Black played 6. We talked about queen h5 here. White played rook d1, threatening bishop b5 or g6. Queen moves out of the way. I mean, queen h5 looks great here, but white just opens up the bishops. Black gets castled. If white takes the pawn on e6, it untangles the black pieces, so white's reluctant to take back the pawn there down. Wow, now suddenly it looks like a Catalan instead of a French. Did you see how that happened? Bishop here, because the rook. Black can't take it. And then the bishop switches over here. What on earth? How did this become a Catalan, right? Oh, it feels exactly Catalan feeling now, right? So black's threatening knight takes rook. Makes me expect rook d7. It's amazing that white has doubled rooks on the 7th and no knockout. I mean, materials equal. The bishop's a nice long-range piece. Why does white not have anything we can see here? I guess after rook here, black's going to play a move like rook d8 or rook b8 or something, just sort of offering some rook trades. And I don't really know how white cranks up the pressure. That's really weird. I guess white can win the a-pawn at some point. Oh, and white chooses to already focus on the a-pawn now. Fancy move, though, leaving this rook in this situation. Playing very fancy. What I was thinking basically is like you do something like this. When they challenge you, you go takes, then rook here. Right? Force them into that, grab the pawn, and then the a-pawn will beat the knight. It's not glorious for those of you looking and dreaming of, like, I don't know, a windmill tactic or a queen sack with a mate or something like that. But basically, if you win the a-pawn as white, then with a bishop against a knight, you sort of win like every single endgame. So it's sufficient. Steve Nash says rook c6, which looks much more appealing than rook b6, but, you know, white lives on the edge. And now we can get a queen trade followed by rook here and then taking that pawn. It's pretty good for white, but black's going to throw in knight d4. So it could be a little complicated. White can also try queen c4 here. Queen c4 might be a knockout now, actually. Because now that knight is tied in one direction. After queen c4, it's tied in a second direction. So if black moves the king, we do this kind of a thing. There's a very high chance that queen c4 actually is a knockout, right? Just wins a piece here. But it is weird that there's nothing glorious, right, Steve Nash? No queen e6, rook g7 or something like that. Doubled rooks on the 7th and no f-pawn for black. It's not even like just doubled rooks on the 7th, right? Doubled rooks on the 7th and your opponent's 7th rank is weakened. And we've got a dark squared bishop and a g7 pawn and we can't break through. That's very weird. Very weird. Oh, queen c4 played by Aaron. And black's got 20 seconds to find a way out of this. And there probably isn't a way out of it. 316 is under maximum pressure here. Will they break on this next move? We think yes. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Yeah, there was nothing. There was nothing. That's like how I end a set when I'm doing push-ups or when I'm swimming or something like that, like eventually my flag just falls, right? I just collapse on the last thing that I can't do. I hang on the side of the pool and breathe heavily till I've got the strength to crawl out of it. And that's what 316 did there. They gave everything to the game. When they finally couldn't find a move to protect that knight, they spent every second of time they had on their clock to look for an answer, and that was it. Till I collapse, I'm spilling these raps, as long as you feel it, till the day that I drop. They'll never say I'm not killing it. Because then I am not, then I'm just not Eminem. And I'm not hip-hop, and I'm just not Eminem. Yeah, good game, Aaron. Good game, 316. Nice fights, everybody. We enjoyed a good Friday night together today. I can say I don't regret any of the time we spent together. Good job to everybody. Playing well, being kind to each other, mediating well, even when we have an occasional, disagreement or difference in standards around sportsmanship. Yeah. Well done. Should I play a game in this tournament even though I'm a million points lower rated? You can, Richard, and you should if you want to. That's the first rap album I ever had, Richard. Now I'm like really into rap, and then I try and cast my mind back and be like, when did I get into it? And it's like, gosh, I don't even know for sure, but I feel like it might have been that album. And my favorite song, and I might have been, 17 or 18, and I mainly listened to Bob Dylan and the Beatles. I think my favorite song was Sing for the Moment. That was like the first song that I really remember listening to on that album. Before that, I'd heard rap music at dances that I went to. I definitely knew Insane in the Membrane and some stuff like that. But that might be the first album that I had at home myself. Was that one. Yeah, I really like that song. These ideas are nightmares to white parents whose worst fear is a child with dyed hair and who likes earrings. Like whatever they say has no bearing. It's so scary in a house that allows no swearing. To see him walking around with his headphones blaring, alone in his own zone, cold and he don't care. He's a problem child. What bothers him all comes out when he talks about his dad walking out. If you ever saw him again, he'd probably knock him out. I think that's great. Maybe it's just because I was still new. Maybe it doesn't hold up, but because of the nostalgia and when I heard it and learned it, it seemed amazing to me. But it still sounds amazing to me now. Bye, Jay. Take care. Knight takes d5. You had knight takes d5 in that game? This one here? As soon as I play b3. Oh my god, here. When the knight went through a5, none of us saw knight takes d5. Shame on everybody. You know what? I think we didn't watch this part live, maybe. We might have an excuse, no vest. I don't know if we have an excuse. I definitely don't remember seeing knight d5. I think I may have gone through some of these moves kind of quickly. Like I was watching up to here, and then we went and looked at another game for a bit. And then we came back, and I saw that you had the second pawn, and then we started working from this position again. Maybe. I don't know. But yes, in a classical game, you would want to see knight takes d5 at your level. I agree. I understand. Yeah, after b3. b3 is a very clean move. I mean, you just stop that knight, right? You're up a pawn. Your position's great. And Clutch noticed it. Okay. So much drama in a chess game, right, guys? Your emotions go up and down many times over the course of one game. That's part of what exhausts you, I think, is the emotional up and down. All right. I think it's time for me to bid you all adieu.